The conversation that ended my marriage started over a casual dinner at my in-laws' house. We were eating Carol's famous pot roast when she pulled out glossy cruise brochures and spread them across the table like she was dealing cards. "Look at these Mediterranean packages," she exclaimed, her eyes gleaming. "Frank and I have decided it's finally time for our dream vacation." "That's wonderful," I said, genuinely happy for them. After 40 years of marriage, they deserved a nice trip. "We're so glad you think so," Frank said, leaning back in his chair with a satisfied smile. "Because you're paying for it." I laughed, thinking it was one of his awkward jokes. Frank was notorious for his bad timing and worse humor, but nobody else was laughing. My husband Nathan was staring at his plate. Carol was watching me expectantly. "I'm sorry, what?" I said, my fork suspended halfway to my mouth. "Your tax refund," Carol said, as if explaining something to a child. "Nathan told us you're getting $8,000 back. That's exactly what the cruise costs. It's like fate." "My name is Monica, and I'm a 32-year-old nurse practitioner. I'd been married to Nathan for 4 years, together for 6, when we met. I was already established in my career while he was between opportunities. I didn't mind supporting us while he figured things out. Love makes you do optimistic things like believe someone who's been figuring things out for 3 years will eventually figure them out." "Nathan told you about our tax refund?" I asked, looking at my husband. He finally met my eyes. "It's not a secret, Mon, they're family. Nathan has already promised us the money," Carol added, patting my hand like I was a good dog who'd performed a trick. "We've even put a deposit down on the cruise. Non-refundable, of course." "You put a deposit down on a cruise with my tax refund?" I couldn't keep the incredulity out of my voice. "Our tax refund," Nathan corrected. "We're married. What's yours is mine." "Funny how that only applies to my income," I muttered. "What was that?" Frank's voice had an edge to it now. "I said it's funny how that only works one way. When I needed help with my student loans, nobody offered to pay those. When my car broke down last year, I handled it myself. But now that I'm getting a refund from the taxes I paid on the income one earned, suddenly it's ours and you've already spent it?" Carol's face flushed. "How dare you bring up money we don't have? We're retired, living on a fixed income. Do you have any idea how hard it was raising Nathan?" "I imagine it was exactly as hard as raising any other child," I said, "which is to say, it was your choice and your responsibility." "Our sacrifice," Frank boomed, slapping the table. "We sacrificed everything for our children. We deserve this vacation. We've earned it." "You earned a vacation by having children? By doing what billions of parents do every day?" "Mon, stop," Nathan said quietly. "You're being disrespectful." "Disrespectful?" I stood up, my hands shaking. "Your parents are demanding my tax refund for a cruise, and I'm being disrespectful?" "We're not demanding," Carol said in a wounded tone. "We're collecting what we're owed. All those years of feeding Nathan, clothing him, putting a roof over his head, private school, soccer camp, college tuition, community college," I corrected, "which he dropped out of, twice." "That's not the point," Nathan snapped. "The point is they're my parents and they deserve a vacation. Why are you being so selfish about this?" I looked at the three of them, my husband and his parents, united in their certainty that I owed them my money because they'd performed the basic functions of parenthood. "You know what?" I said, picking up my purse. "You're right. This is all about what people deserve, and I deserve better than this." "Where are you going?" Nathan called as I headed for the door. "To think about my priorities, and to call my accountant about filing my taxes separately." "You can't do that," Carol shrieked. "We already put the deposit down." "Then you better hope they take refunds," I said, and left. The drive home was a blur of anger and hurt. I'd known Nathan's parents were entitled, but this was beyond anything I'd imagined. They genuinely believed that raising their own child meant I owed them a vacation, and Nathan agreed with them. When I got home, Nathan was already there, pacing the living room like a caged animal. "How could you embarrass me like that?" he started before I even closed the door, storming out like a child. "How could you promise them my money without asking me?" "Our money," he shouted. "God, Monica, when did you become so obsessed with keeping score?" When I realized I was the only one putting points on the board, I shot back. "Nathan, I've been supporting us for 4 years. I pay the rent, the utilities, the groceries, your car insurance. Because you make more money. Because I have a job. You've been looking for the right opportunity since before we got married. That's not fair. The job market is tough." "For 4 years, Nathan, the gas station down the street has had a help wanted sign up for 6 months, but every job is beneath you. isn't it? Better to let your wife support you while you wait for the perfect opportunity that never comes. At least my parents appreciate what I bring to the table, he said coldly. What table? The one I paid for? In the apartment I rent? With the food I buy? I laughed bitterly. What exactly do you bring to any table, Nathan? I bring love, support, understanding. You bring your parents' hands into my wallet. They deserve that vacation, he said stubbornly, after everything they've done. Everything they've done? They raised their own child. That's not a debt I have to pay. If you loved me, you'd do this for them. I stared at him, really looked at him for the first time in years, not the potential I'd fallen in love with, but the reality, a 34-year-old man who'd never held a job for more than 6 months, who ran to his parents with our financial information, who genuinely believed I owed his parents a cruise for the crime of birthing him. You're right, I said quietly. If I loved you, I'd do it. Good thing I'm falling out of love pretty fast. His face went white. You don't mean that. I filed for separation this morning. I lied, but I'd make it true first thing tomorrow. I'll be staying with my sister until I can find my own place. Monica, wait, let's talk about this. I'm sure we can compromise. Compromise? What's the compromise here, Nathan? I pay for half their cruise? I pay for their airfare? Where's the line where I stop owing your parents for your existence? I already told them they could have the money, he said desperately. They'll be crushed. Then you better get a job and earn $8,000 real fast. I packed a bag while Nathan alternated between pleading and threatening. His phone rang constantly. Carol, no doubt, wanting updates on her cruise fund. She'll call the IRS, Nathan said at one point. She'll report you for tax fraud. For what? Filing my own taxes? That's not fraud, Nathan, that's my right. We're married, you have to file jointly. No, actually, I don't. Especially not when I'm the only one with income. Funny how you never researched tax law before, but suddenly you're an expert when your mommy's cruise is on the line. I stayed with my sister Kate that night. She'd never liked Nathan, and hearing the full story made her livid. They actually thought you'd just hand over $8,000 for a cruise? She kept saying, because they didn't abandon their child. The bar is underground. The next morning, I met with my lawyer and filed for separation. I also called my accountant and confirmed I could file taxes separately. Smart move, he said, especially since your husband has no income. Filing jointly would actually reduce your refund because of the standard deduction. Separately, you'll get the full amount you're owed. Wait, I'm getting more by filing separately? About $1,500 more. Actually, his zero income was dragging down your refund. I couldn't help but laugh. The irony was delicious. The text started that afternoon. Carol had apparently gotten my number from Nathan's phone. You're destroying this family over money, so materialistic. We already told our friends about the cruise. How can we face them now? Nathan is heartbroken. I hope you're happy. We'll sue you for alienation of affection and theft of promised funds. That last one made me laugh so hard I screenshot it for my lawyer, who also found it hilarious. Promised funds? She chuckled. From a tax refund that hasn't even been processed yet? For raising their own child? I've seen a lot, but this is a new level of entitlement. Nathan tried a different approach, sending long, emotional texts about our love and our future. How could I throw away 4 years over one disagreement? Didn't I remember our wedding vows? Didn't I care about his mental health? Your mental health seemed fine when you were promising my money to your parents. I texted back, then blocked his number. 3 days later, the real panic set in. Without my income, Nathan couldn't pay any bills. His parents, despite their demands for cruise money, weren't offering to help with rent or utilities. The apartment complex called me because Nathan had tried to pay rent with a check that bounced. Ma'am, we need payment by the end of the week or we'll start eviction proceedings, the manager informed me. I'm separated from my husband and no longer live there, I explained. I've already removed my name from the lease. This is his responsibility now. Oh, well, he listed you as his emergency contact and financial guarantor. Not anymore. You'll need to work with him directly. That evening, Nathan showed up at Kate's house. She wouldn't let him in, but he stood on the porch, visible through the security camera, looking pathetic. Monica, please, I can't afford the apartment. I don't have anywhere to go. Have you tried getting a job? Kate called through the door. I hear they exchange labor for money. This isn't funny. My parents are furious. They're saying I ruined their retirement dreams. Their retirement dreams depend on your wife's tax refund? Kate shot back. Maybe they should have saved better. You know, like responsible adults. Monica, Nathan pleaded. Just give them half. Keep half for yourself. That's fair, right? I finally went to the door, though I didn't open it. Nathan, do you hear yourself? You're trying to negotiate how much of my money to give your parents. Not our money, mine, from my job, that I earned, while you sat at home networking on LinkedIn. I've been looking for jobs. For 4 years? I've seen your browser history. Nathan, you spend more time on gaming forums than job sites. That's invasion of privacy. On the computer I bought? With the internet I pay for? Try again. He left eventually, but not before his mother called Kate's phone, screaming about lawsuits and elder abuse and how I was stealing from seniors. Kate put her on speaker so I could hear. Elder abuse? Kate said incredulously. You're 62 and playing golf 3 times a week. You're not elderly, you're just entitled. How dare you? We gave you our son. Nobody asked for him, Kate shot back, and based on what I'm seeing, you can have him back. Returns are always accepted in original condition, unemployed and living with mommy. The call ended with Carol threatening to call the police, the FBI, and the president if necessary. We laughed, but I made sure to document everything for my lawyer. A week later, Nathan was evicted from our apartment. He moved back in with his parents, who were suddenly less eager to have their precious son around when he came with bills instead of benefits. The cruise was cancelled, though they lost their deposit, a fact Carol made sure to post about on Facebook, tagging me as the selfish daughter-in-law who destroyed our dreams. The comments on her post didn't go the way she expected. Most people were shocked that she'd expected her daughter-in-law's tax refund. Several pointed out that raising your own children isn't a loan to be repaid. One particularly savage comment read, "So you're saying you only had kids as a retirement investment? That's the saddest thing I've ever heard." She deleted the post within hours, but the screenshots lived on in my group chat with friends. My $8,000 tax refund, which turned out to be $9,500 thanks to filing separately, went exactly where I'd planned: $5,000 to my student loans, $3,000 to savings, and $1,500 for a solo vacation to Costa Rica. The remaining $1,000 went toward first month's rent on my new apartment. I posted pictures from Costa Rica on Instagram, ziplining through the rainforest, relaxing on pristine beaches, enjoying sunset dinners for one. I didn't tag Nathan or his parents, but mutual friends ensured they saw them. Nathan texted from his mom's phone, "I hope you're happy flaunting that money while my parents suffer." Your parents are suffering because they raised an entitled son who thinks his wife owes them a vacation. I replied, "I'm thriving because I no longer have 3 adults treating me like an ATM. So yes, I'm very happy." The divorce was finalized 6 months later. Nathan tried to claim alimony, arguing that he'd sacrificed career opportunities to support my success. The judge actually laughed. "Mr. Nathan, can you provide evidence of any career opportunities you turned down?" "Well, no, but I was emotionally supporting her." "While she financially supported you, for 4 years. Motion denied. Nathan's parents showed up at the courthouse, apparently planning to testify about how much I owed them for raising him. The judge shut that down immediately. "Ma'am, sir, your son is 34 years old. Whatever you spent raising him is between you and him, not his soon-to-be ex-wife. Please sit down." After the divorce, I heard through mutual friends that Nathan was still living with his parents, still unemployed, still waiting for the right opportunity. Carol and Frank, meanwhile, had to take out a loan for a much more modest vacation, a week in Florida instead of 2 weeks in the Mediterranean. They posted passive-aggressive photos with captions like "making the best of what we have." Despite disappointments and some people forget what family means, the comments were brutal, with most people pointing out that they seem to have forgotten what parenting means. A year later, I ran into Nathan at a grocery store. He was buying generic brand everything while I was loading up for a dinner party I was hosting. He looked older, defeated, wearing a polo shirt with a fast food logo. "So you finally got a job," I said, not unkindly. "Yeah, well, turns out the right opportunity wasn't coming." He shifted uncomfortably. "Mom and Dad make me pay rent now. Can you believe that? My own parents." "Yes, Nathan, I can believe parents would expect their adult son to contribute to household expenses. Wild concept. I guess I owe you an apology," he said quietly. "I get it now, working, paying bills, being responsible. It's hard. It was always hard. You just never noticed because I was doing it for both of us." "Do you think?" he started, then stopped. "Never mind, I know the answer." "Good luck, Nathan," I said, meaning it. "I hope you figure it out." As I walked away with my cart full of ingredients for my dinner party, in my apartment, that I paid for, with my money, I felt nothing but relief. The $8,000 tax refund that started this whole mess had been spent long ago, but what I'd gained was priceless: freedom from a man who saw me as his personal bank, and in-laws who believed their basic parenting deserved a luxury cruise. Sometimes I think about Carol and Frank, still bitter about their lost Mediterranean dream. They raised a son who couldn't support himself, then expected his wife to fund their retirement. They genuinely believed that feeding and clothing their own child for 18 years entitled them to my earnings forever. But here's what I learned: just because someone calls you family doesn't mean they get to call your bank. Love isn't measured in dollars given to in-laws, and marriage isn't a subscription service where you pay for your spouse's existence plus a retirement plan for their parents. My tax refund was mine, my income was mine, my future was mine, and anyone who thought otherwise could take their own cruise right out of my life. If you're watching this and facing similar demands, remember, you don't owe your in-laws for raising their children. That was their job. Your job is to protect your financial future, set boundaries, and never let anyone convince you that basic parenting is a debt you need to repay. Some people deserve vacations, some people deserve tax refunds, and some people deserve to figure out that their 34-year-old unemployed son isn't anyone else's responsibility but their own. Thank you for watching my story. File your taxes separately if you need to, and never let anyone guilt you into funding their dreams with your reality.
Upon glancing at my phone, I noticed a staggering 13 missed calls, all originating from my persistent mother-in-law, Martha. Not again, I thought to myself. Just as I was contemplating this influx of calls, my phone vibrated once more. Answering the call, I was met with Martha's angered voice demanding, "Excuse me, isn't the allowance for this month $3,000 due?" "Excuse me?" I responded, trying to keep my composure. "Send the allowance. This month's payment hasn't been deposited yet." Martha raged on, completely indifferent to my circumstances and solely fixated on her own desires. Fed up with her lack of consideration, even in challenging situations, I reluctantly resorted to my last option. Pulling myself together, I blurted out, "Your son has passed away, so I can no longer send the allowance. My name is Jennifer Smith, 32 years old. I'm a busy working woman at a major financial firm and also a housewife." Reflecting on my past, I reminisced about meeting my beloved husband Mark 2 years ago. We connected through our shared hobbies, and our relationship blossomed quickly. Despite encountering no major quarrels, a significant issue arose in the form of Martha, my mother-in-law. Mark's father had passed away a few years ago, leaving Martha as his sole family. The trouble began when I visited Martha's home to introduce myself before our wedding. Martha greeted me with a displeased expression, remarking, "So, you're Mark's fiancée, huh?" "Yes, my name is Jennifer Miller." To my astonishment, she continued, "You're a rather plain girl. I wonder what Mark sees in you." Uncertain if she was joking or being serious, I was left in shock. Mark, noticing my discomfort, confronted his mother. "Hey, Mom, what's with the sudden harsh words? How can you say such things to the person I chose?" Martha responded, "I'm just trying to choose a suitable woman for you." An argument unfolded between mother and son, leaving the air heavy with tension during my first meeting with Martha. I found myself unable to intervene, even though the atmosphere remained awkward. Eventually, we managed to convey our intention to marry. As we were leaving, Martha called out to Mark, sounding somewhat disgruntled. "Mark, can I have a word? You're going to keep that promise after you get married, right?" "What promise?" Mark inquired. "You know, about the allowance." "Ah, that. Yes, I'll be sure to take care of that." "Can we not discuss it here, please?" Mark replied. While leaving, the tension between my husband and his mother lingered, and the air was thick with discomfort. In the car on the way home, I brought up the conversation Mark had with his mom. "Hey, Mark, about the conversation you had with your mom as we were leaving." "Yeah, I should have told you about it, Jennifer. I heard something about an allowance. After my dad passed away, I've been sending money to my mom every month." "How much?" I asked. $2,000. $2,000. I couldn't help but raise my voice in surprise. Mark sighed deeply and explained, Actually, my mom has a debt from a casino a long time ago. She's still paying it off, and because her health isn't great these days, she spends a lot of time at home. But she still needs money to live on, right? But $2,000? Isn't that a bit too much? If I try to lower the amount, she keeps calling me over and over. And no matter what, a mother is still a mother. I worry about her living alone, Mark reasoned. I understood that Mark was genuinely devoted to his mother. Since his father passed away, Martha had been the only family he had left. Regardless of her character, she was still his beloved mother. 2 months after our wedding, during my lunch break, I received a call from Martha on my smartphone. When I answered, she began to speak in a cheerful tone. "Jennifer, long time no see. Can we chat for a bit?" "Yes. What can I do for you?" I asked. "Well, I was hoping you could start sending me money," Martha said. I was taken aback and struggled to find words. However, Martha seemed excited to continue the conversation. "You mentioned before that you're working for a financial company, right? That means you have a good salary, doesn't it?" "Not exactly." "What, are you lying to avoid giving me money?" "That's not what I mean," I replied. "Then what is it?" "But Martha, you're still receiving financial support from Mark, aren't you?" I asked. In defiance, Martha responded, "So what?" Jennifer sternly stated what she felt Martha was not appreciating. "Martha, receiving $2,000 in monthly support is a big deal, and yet you're asking for more." Really? You think so? If you were to send me an additional $1,000, I could avoid burdening Mark. "What do you mean by that?" I asked. "Well, I have Mark as a guarantor for my debts. If I fail to make payments, the debt collectors will go after him." "Do you understand?" Martha explained. "But aren't you using part of Mark's $2,000 to pay back the debt?" I inquired. "I'm short. I haven't told Mark, but I have a significant amount of debt," Martha confessed. From her tone, it was apparent that this was a fact even her husband was unaware of. Having children in the future would increase our expenses. In addition to that, taking over Martha's debt was not an easy task. However, if Martha's payments fall behind and the debt falls onto Mark, the interest will likely have accumulated significantly by that time. If I refused to send money, it would eventually become a problem for my husband as well. Thinking along those lines, I reluctantly agreed to Martha's proposal. "All right, I'll start sending you money." "Really? Good, Jennifer. I knew you would say that. The total, with Mark's contribution, will be $3,000. But this means you can pay off your debt, right?" "Yes, of course. I should be able to pay it all off in about a year." "You promise, right? You'll make sure to pay off all your debts." "I get it. So I'll be expecting it from this month onwards." Martha concluded the call abruptly. Physical exhaustion from work combined with this emotional burden only added to my stress. $1,000 a month, that's going to be rough. But it's also to prevent future problems for us. After all, if Martha can't make a living, it will upset Mark as well. That night, I promptly reported the matter to my husband. He told me I didn't have to do this, but I had already given my word to Martha, and it was a decision made for our future well-being. Mark expressed his gratitude and understanding, even as he maintained a sorry expression throughout. Time flew by, and 2 years have passed since then. The financial aid we thought would end in a year is still ongoing, and even now, we are transferring $3,000 every month to Martha. What's more, about 2 months ago, Mark fell ill and has been unable to go to work. He's on sick leave, so he's receiving disability benefits, but it's a mere pittance compared to his previous salary. Last month, I managed to transfer $3,000 to Martha from my savings, but it would be very challenging if this situation continues. Unbelievably, Martha has not once come to visit her sick son. We have informed her of his hospitalization, but she doesn't show up to see him and only contacts me to ask, "You're still sending the money, right?" I was so furious that I decided to address the issue with Mark. "Mark, listen. Don't you think it's wrong that Martha is only concerned about money, even though you're in such a state? We need to think seriously about what to do going forward. Yeah, I've been thinking the same thing. I don't want to put more strain on you, Jennifer. This month, too, she's been bombarding me with calls and messages, asking if we've sent the money yet. Are you serious? How can she only think about money when her own son is sick? Mark expressed his anger towards his mother, his face slightly worn. Then, as if he had an idea, Mark exclaimed, "That's it," and wore a sly grin. "What is it, Mark?" "Well, this is our last resort. I've come up with something good. For your mom." "What?" I was curious but cautious. Mark suggested a plan that I could never have imagined. Although it could be called inappropriate, it seemed to be the only way to make Martha understand. A few weeks later, Mark was discharged from the hospital. Martha didn't reply to any of our messages, so we didn't inform her about Mark's discharge. In the last 2 weeks, Martha had been relentlessly demanding money, displaying no concern for her son's well-being. While Mark and I were enjoying a cup of tea, a message came in on my phone. Upon checking, I found 13 missed calls from Martha again. As I thought, my phone vibrated again. It was another call from Martha. "Hello," I answered and turned on the speaker microphone so that Mark could hear. Martha started shouting right away. "Listen, where's the $3,000 for this month?" "Excuse me, that's right. The money for this month hasn't been transferred yet," I replied. "Do you realize Mark is now? I don't care if he's in the hospital or whatever. It's none of my business. You're working at a good place, right? You must have plenty of savings. Hurry up and transfer it here," Martha shouted angrily. Eventually, she said something unbelievable. "Listen, since you married Mark, if you can't pay, you have to pay me. Understand? If you refuse, I'll make you the guarantor. Got it?" At that moment, something inside me snapped. She was displaying her desires openly without considering our situation at all. I had reached my breaking point with her. She didn't even try to reflect on her own actions. Now, I had no choice but to resort to the last resort. I firmly declared into my smartphone, "Mark has passed away. I can't send you any more money." At these words, Martha blurted out in bafflement, "What?" Yes, this was the last resort that my husband suggested. Lie to Martha about Mark's death and observe her reaction. If she showed any sign of sadness, if she reflected on her behavior and apologized, we would continue to support her financially. But if she didn't reflect, if she demanded money, we would sever ties completely. Deep down, I knew it was time to confront Martha's blatant disregard for the well-being of her own family. I believed that even someone as money-driven as Martha would deeply reflect on her actions upon hearing that her own son had passed away. However, the very next moment, Martha burst into loud laughter. "What's so funny?" I questioned. "Well, isn't it obvious? If Mark is dead, that means his inheritance will be distributed to me too. Excuse me, I've been looking into it since I heard that Mark was sick. Listen here, 2/3 of Mark's assets are yours, but 1/3 is mine." I was at a loss for words. I never anticipated that when she first heard her son was sick, she wouldn't look into treatment, but into how the inheritance would be divided. My anger surpassed. I was simply dumbfounded. My husband seemed to feel the same way, and as our eyes met, he slowly nodded. This was the signal to continue with the plan. Once again, I said to Martha in a strong tone, "Martha, did you hear what I said? Mark is dead." "I heard. What about it?" "Aren't you sad your own son passed away before you?" Martha replied nonchalantly, "You just make sure to send me some. I won't let you get away with not doing it." With a click, the phone line was cut off, and a dial tone echoed. I glanced at my husband and saw that he was shaking, his face red with anger. "Mark, are you okay?" I asked. My husband looked into my eyes and said, "I'm cutting ties with her. She'll likely come here eventually, demanding money. Let's wait until then, okay?" "But are you really okay with this, cutting off ties just like that?" "Yeah, I have no regrets. After that call, she's no mother." My husband's eyes were filled with hatred, and I felt the same way. A person who only thinks about money over her own son's life is not family to me. A few days later, as expected, Martha came to our house. For the time being, I decided to hide my husband in the next room and deal with Martha myself. Martha approached me with a face like a demon. "Hey, give me Mark's inheritance right now." Again with that? Anything else to say? He's already dead, isn't he? It's pointless to say anything now. Yet you never even visited him. What are you saying? Are you really his mother? You're so annoying. Give me the inheritance right away. I don't mind getting the lawyer. Speaking more would be a waste of time. Just as I thought that, my husband emerged from the next room. Seeing him, Martha let out a startled gasp as if she had seen a ghost. "Mark, why weren't you dead?" "Long time no see, Mom." "Sorry, but the news about my death was a lie." "A lie? How could you be so disrespectful?" "I wanted to confirm your true nature, Mom. I was curious about how you'd handle the allowance if your son died. But you turned out to be a gold digger, just as I suspected." I understood perfectly. "What? How dare you call your mother a gold digger?" "Silence. I'm cutting ties with a toxic parent like you." My husband's angry shouts left Martha with her mouth agape. She couldn't come to terms with the fact that her own son was severing ties with her. "What does this mean, Mark?" she stammered. "It means exactly what I said. I can't consider someone like you as my mother. No way." "What about the allowance? Do you really think I would? You're on your own with the debts. We're moving. Wait, please. If you do that, what about my living expenses?" Teary-eyed and pleading, Martha reached out to my husband. He forcefully shook off her hand, looked at her coldly, and said, "I don't care about your living expenses. You have been living off us without even a single apology. I really understand your despicable nature now. Don't you dare show up in front of us again." "No, wait, Mark. Are you going to abandon your mother?" Ignoring her words, my husband grabbed Martha's arm and dragged her to the front door. He threw her shoes and bag outside and chased Martha out of the house. Martha made a fuss outside for a while but disappeared after a bit, perhaps unable to withstand the eyes of the neighbors. She tried contacting us multiple times, but we ignored all of her attempts. We set Martha's number to be automatically rejected, and we finished moving. Regarding the matter of co-signing for the debts, it became invalid since Martha had made Mark the co-signer without his consent, and therefore he was not responsible. Without the allowance from us, Martha seemed to be leading a miserable life. It's only natural, considering she had been using the allowance for her gambling habits instead of paying off her debts. She still had a mountain of debts and was chased by debt collectors every day. Unable to gamble anymore, she seems to be working from dawn to dusk. For the foreseeable future, it's unlikely that she will be able to pay off her debts completely. She will have to keep working until she is unable to move. This is entirely her own doing. As for us, we are spending fulfilling days in our new home. My husband's condition has stabilized, and he has returned to work. After some time, there's a new life growing in my belly. We're going to have an additional member in our family next year. From now on, we want to spend happy days as a family of 3. Why are you even in this house? You're like a parasite living off of us here. As soon as the words left my mouth, my mother-in-law wasted no time throwing my belongings out of the window. I protested her irrational actions, asking, "What did you say? Don't you dare talk back to me. Can you pick my stuff up, please?" I pleaded. In response, my mother-in-law put a knife to my throat, paralyzing me with fear. "Get out, or this won't just be a game anymore." "I understand. If that's the case, I'll leave immediately," I replied. She gave me a week to vacate the premises, and I showed respect, though I couldn't suppress a hidden amusement beneath my straight face. Little did she know that I was the one supporting this house. Despite the torment I endured living with my mother-in-law, the fear from earlier vanished. I thought, if you've got what it takes, then prove it. "I'll give you a week. I expect you to be out of here by then," she declared. "Thank you," I said, showing respect, though laughter lingered just beneath the surface. Hoping she didn't notice, I believed my departure would bring peace to our home. Little did she know, leaving her in the family home, I moved to a high-rise apartment. Eventually, she would learn the truth, but by then, it would be too late. I am Valerie Reynolds, applying my past work experience while working from home. It had been 5 years since I married Justin, expecting a peaceful and happy life. However, life took an unexpected turn when Justin had a construction site accident, resulting in the loss of most of the use of his dominant arm. Grateful that he survived, I found myself in the hospital room, tears streaming down my face. My mother-in-law arrived, seemingly oblivious to my presence, rushing to Justin's side. She suggested he stay with her, and I was taken aback by the proposal. When she noticed my surprise, she coldly questioned, "What's wrong? Do you have a problem with that?" "No, it's not that. It's just a bit sudden. With my son like this, I can't leave everything up to you," I retorted, irritated by her words. Justin, however, expressed his trust in me, saying, "Valerie has been working hard all this time. That's why I trust her going forward." My mother-in-law, displeased, made an inaudible noise, but she couldn't sway my determination. "Well, anyway, come to the house as soon as you're discharged from the hospital. Of course you're invited, Valerie. That goes without saying." I could predict what would happen if everything were left up to my mother-in-law. "By the way, Valerie, I'm leaving all the moving arrangements to you. Everything." "That's a bit much," my husband chimed in. "It's too much for one person to handle alone. Mom, please help her out." I hoped he would insist more strongly, but it seemed my mother-in-law had no intention of helping and ignored my husband's words. "I have my own things to do, you know," she smirked at me, unnoticed by my husband. It felt ominous, and so began our life living with my mother-in-law. A month later, my husband was discharged from the hospital, and I was busy with the move, leaving the task of picking him up to my mother-in-law. She came to me and said, "Aren't you done yet? I told you today was Justin's discharge day, and yet you didn't even come to pick him up." "But that's because, you see, Justin," I started, but my husband interrupted. "Just like I said, right? This person only thinks about herself." My mother-in-law's intention was clear. She was trying to make me look bad in front of my husband. I decided not to take her obvious bait. Looking at my husband, he had a warm and understanding look in his eyes. "Come on, Mom, stop this. It's unsightly. I'm doing this for your sake." Well, no one asked you to wait. The sight of my mother-in-law running after my husband was comically pathetic. When she noticed, she glared at me with an evil expression. Not that her glare meant anything to me. "Justin, you can just take it easy and relax at home from now on," I suggested. "That's impossible. My right hand might not work, but I don't want to be a burden on Valerie," he replied. "I can understand that, but you've just been discharged from the hospital. Still, I can be satisfied if I don't do something." Justin was adamant, and initially, I had hoped he would take some time to relax. But seeing his determination, I decided to respect his wishes. Doing everything at once might be too much, so how about starting with some light cleaning? It could be good for rehabilitation. "That's a good idea. I don't know if this hand will ever fully recover, but it's better than doing nothing. But on one condition, don't overdo it. Got it?" I wouldn't want to be scolded. It's scary to make you angry. Justin acted as if nothing was wrong, making it clear that he didn't want to make me worry. So, I resolved to work even harder for the both of us. However, I had forgotten about one person who would interfere. "Valerie, wait a minute. What's the matter? Why is Justin cleaning? You must have forced him to do it, right?" "Your words are just a front," my mother-in-law accused. She judged things only by what she saw, oblivious to the underlying thoughts and emotions. Dealing with that was a challenge in itself. "You're always just cooped up in your room playing around. Honestly, in such a situation with your husband seriously injured." "Actually, I'm working. It's called remote work these days." I've had enough of that excuse." "It's not an excuse," I replied. Just then, My mother-in-law grabbed a nearby trash can and threw it at me. Luckily, it didn't hit me directly, but the trash went everywhere. I lost the energy to explain things to her further. It was clear from the start that she had no intention of listening. "This trash is disgusting. Clean it up yourself," she said. As I sighed and started picking it up, Justin approached me and asked, "Hey, what happened?" "Oh, this is just a small incident," I replied with a forced smile. But Justin seemed to have realized something. He usually appears calm, but sometimes he's surprisingly perceptive. "Did Mom do something?" Well, are you hiding something? Can you be honest with me?" Justin was looking at me with a serious expression. Seeing his face, I felt that I couldn't lie, so I told him what had happened. "Got it. I'll talk to Mom about this." "Oh, it's fine. You really. But it's not okay. I'll talk to her properly." "No, but that is." I was happy to get his help, but I was worried about what would come next. In the end, I would be the one blamed. I stared at the ceiling, deep in thought. Night came, and I thought Valerie was just playing around. That's not true. Valerie has been working hard, even doing my share. "Then why were you cleaning?" "I offered to do it. I can't just sit around doing nothing at home." "But you just got out of the hospital." "I know my own body best." Justin's stern words silenced his mother. She might not have expected her son to speak to her like that. But if she really does think that she's above such things, she's just arrogant. I hoped that this would calm her down a bit. That day, Justin went out for rehabilitation, leaving me alone with my mother-in-law. As I was working in my room as usual, she showed up. "Can we talk?" "Sorry, can you wait just a bit, about 15 more minutes?" "No, I can't wait right now." "All right, I'm coming." I hurried along and went to the living room where an unknown woman was waiting for us. "Excuse me, who is this?" "Have a seat first. We'll talk after that." I had no choice but to follow my mother-in-law, but I couldn't grasp the situation. As I was trying to figure it out, the woman started speaking. "So this is the one you were talking about, the wife who just plays around without working?" "Yes, it's true." My mother-in-law was laughing eerily. "So you realize that you're an unnecessary presence in this house." "What are you talking about?" Looking around, I saw them sighing. I didn't understand. Suddenly confronted by a stranger and put down as the target of blame. If I could, I would have left that place in an instant. "Don't you understand? Unnecessary people are not needed here." "What do you mean?" Everyone answers that way. More perplexing questions followed. They kept insisting on how incompetent I was. Enduring such accusations could mentally exhaust anyone. "Isn't it time you realized your place? Shouldn't I be asking you how dare a daughter-in-law toy her mother-in-law, spending time on such unproductive things? Isn't it a waste of time? What the nerve of a daughter-in-law, really now?" I felt like I was reaching my limit. I didn't know what my mother-in-law would do if she got angrier. That's when I came up with an idea. "Oh, isn't it about time that Justin comes back from rehab? Is it that time already?" Just then, the unknown woman left quickly. "I'll come again soon." "Okay, I'll be waiting for you. Let's talk again." My mother-in-law and her friend were fooled. In reality, Justin wouldn't be home for another hour. It was just getting good. Speaking of which, who was that woman? I finally asked a question that had been on my mind. "That's Susan, a close friend of mine. She wanted to meet you after hearing about you." It wasn't hard to guess how my mother-in-law had introduced me, probably as a useless wife who does nothing but play around. I pitied my mother-in-law for doing nothing else but that. "So that's the case. Well, Justin will be back a bit later. I'm going back to work now." As I was about to return to my room, she said, "Wait, what do you mean?" "Just as I said, he's not coming back yet." "You lied. You didn't realize. Why do you act like this?" I decided to use this opportunity to speak my mind. Any further interference from my mother-in-law would just be a nuisance. "Actually, you were the one who started things, right? You called your friend because you can't do anything alone." "That's not true." I can handle you fine by myself. Then why don't you try to see if you really can? I deliberately provoked my mother-in-law, thinking this would prompt her to take some action, and as expected, she reacted. If you want to apologize, now is the time. I have no such intention. At that, my mother-in-law exploded in anger, grabbing a nearby vase and throwing it at me, similar to how she had previously thrown the trash can. I had anticipated it and easily dodged, even showing a provocative smile. "Hello, I'm home." Just then, Justin came back. My mother-in-law was visibly shaken. "Why are you home already? It's not time yet." "Oh, sorry, I lied earlier. I was actually on my way back." "Why would you do that?" "Isn't it obvious?" I said, pointing to the shattered vase. I couldn't help but find the situation amusing. Hey, what's this? What happened?" "Your mom threw it at me." "What do you mean?" "You know, a lady just came over claiming to be your mom's friend." I told Justin everything that happened. He showed a mix of being surprised and angry. "Is that true, Mom?" Well. So it's true then. Why would you do that?" "I didn't mean to." Watching my mother-in-law being scolded, I felt a sense of retribution for all the hardships I had endured. "Well, I have something to do, so okay, wait." I ignored my mother-in-law's words and returned to my room, thinking this would end her bullying. I truly believed it. After that, calm days continued for a while. But having stayed up all night, I dozed off past noon. "Sorry to wake you, but can you come here for a moment?" "Okay, sure." Justin seemed unusually serious. My mother-in-law was there in the living room. "What's going on?" "Look at this." I looked at the table to find a disassembled plastic model scattered about. It was one of Justin's hobbies, and he had treasured it. When I came home, it was like this. "Do you know anything?" "No, I have no clue." I couldn't think of any reason for it. This plastic model was in my father-in-law's room before, but of course, I hadn't been in that room today, nor had entered it recently. Someone must have broken it for it to be like this. My eyes naturally turned towards my mother-in-law. She was the only suspect. My mother-in-law had a strange, eerie smile on her face, like she was possessed. I understood the situation. Even if someone broke it, I was out. I met Justin on my way back from Susan's place, remember? "Yes, but—" And then I found this in the room. My mother-in-law was holding a shiny object. "Is that an earring?" I instinctively checked my own ears. My left earring was missing. I was certain of my suspicions. It was clear revenge on me for last time. "This is yours, isn't it, Mallory? And it looks like only the left one is missing." I took a deep breath. Showing anger now would mean that I would be playing into her hands. Indeed, it's mine. But isn't it premature to conclude that I broke it? Making excuses is so unbecoming. We have evidence. Still, anyway, it's broken. Wait a minute. Justin left the room. At that moment, my mother-in-law's gaze was fixed on me. The situation made me feel like Justin saw me as a criminal, and I just stood there stunned. "It's a shame. This would have been the end of you if you did it. You set a trap, didn't you? You'll find no evidence anywhere. If only you had followed my advice, this wouldn't have happened. If I explain things to him properly, he'll understand, will he?" Her words became reality. No matter how much I insisted to Justin that it wasn't my fault, he wouldn't take me seriously. "Wait, I haven't done anything wrong. Maybe, I get it." He immediately averted his gaze. Laughter echoed from behind us. "See? I told you so. What does that matter? It's sad that you don't want to admit defeat." After that, I immersed myself in work. It was almost like escaping from reality. Conversations with Justin became less frequent, and about 2 weeks went by. During this time, my mother-in-law seemed quite pleased with herself. "You seem down lately. Is there something troubling you?" "There's no need for you to worry. Please stop. It's too late for that. Acting tough is useless." On this day, my mother-in-law was in an especially good mood. My feeling of foreboding came true, eventually becoming reality. It happened while I was cleaning the room. "Why are you even in this house?" You're like a parasite living off of us here. What's gotten into you all of a sudden? You always talk back, such a noisy daughter-in-law. After saying that, she threw my belongings out of the window. What are you doing? I protested her insane actions, questioning what had gotten into her. You're too noisy, always talking back. Can you pick my stuff up, please? I said, hoping for some reason to prevail. But as I said that, my mother-in-law put a knife to my throat. I was frozen in fear, unable to move. It's better if you stay still. A normal person wouldn't do this, I managed to utter, but my mother-in-law was clearly deranged. If you don't leave now, next time it won't be just a joke. I understand. I'll leave, I said, realizing that staying would only drag me further into her madness. You have a week. Leave before then, thank you. It was evident that staying would only worsen things. In her madness, my mother-in-law didn't understand who truly supported this house. She lived comfortably and leisurely thanks to me, yet she really knew nothing. Pack up quickly, she ordered, and I obliged. A smile formed on my lips as I bowed my head. But I couldn't let her suspect anything. I quickly composed my face. This will bring peace back to our home. I'm so happy, she remarked. But her happiness was short-lived. I couldn't help but think about the true hell awaiting her. After my mother-in-law had gone to bed, I explained the situation to Justin. I see. So it has come to this. Actually, I have something to tell you too, he said with a serious tone, surprising me. What? Yes, various things. We'll talk about it later, okay? His serious tone made me raise my voice in surprise, but he assured me we'd discuss it later. 3 days after being told to leave the house by my mother-in-law, I found a new place. Now the promised week was almost up. Well, today's the day of the promise. You understand, right? I asked Justin. Yes, the movers are scheduled to arrive soon, he replied. But when I inquired about Justin's whereabouts, he seemed to have gone out since the morning. Well, never mind. The thought of not having to see your face anymore is enough. I'm going out now. Make sure everything's clean, understood. I told my mother-in-law, smiling, though not genuinely. An hour later, the moving company arrived and loaded all my belongings. I contacted Justin. All packed up, got it. Just make sure you get there safely, okay? See you later, he said, ending the call. I was excited to think about what would happen when my mother-in-law returned. Finally, the moment of completing the move arrived. What have you done? Justin's belongings are nowhere to be found, my mother-in-law exclaimed. Of course, we moved out together. No way. Do you want to check with him? I got out my phone, set it to speaker, and handed it to my mother-in-law, who still couldn't grasp the situation. Justin confirmed the plan, leaving my mother-in-law bewildered. This was my plan all along, Mom, I admitted. Justin, what's happening? Tell me, she pleaded. Actually, about the model kit incident, we know that you did it, Justin declared, putting an end to her denials. There's no way Valerie would do such a thing, he added, defending me. Why do you think that? Because it was a gift from Valerie. She wouldn't break it on purpose, Justin reasoned. My mother-in-law was at a loss for words, realizing that she had been supported by the very person she had mistreated. Well, then, you'll have to manage on your own from here on out, Justin concluded. But I don't work. If you two leave me, that's the choice you made, she said, coming to terms with the consequences of her actions. Mom, it's no longer our business. Well, it's time for each of us to do our best, Justin remarked, ending the conversation. We felt relieved. We had hoped for a good relationship at first but quickly gave up. Now my mother-in-law chose her own fate. But why did you keep it a secret about that? What about Mom? It's like they say, deceive your allies to deceive your enemy, Justin explained. You can't mean enemy, I said in disbelief. We looked at each other and burst out laughing. Finally, we could have a peaceful life together. About a month later, Justin expressed some doubts. You seem down lately. Is there something troubling you? There's no need for you to worry. Please stop. It's too late for that. Acting tough is useless, I assured him. On this day, my mother-in-law was in an especially good mood. My feeling of foreboding came true, eventually becoming reality. Greetings, I'm Felicity, and I've reached the age of 37. Allow me to recount an intriguing experience and how I swiftly handled it, as I'm not one to be deceived, contrary to many tales I've encountered. Surprisingly, I had a good relationship with my mother-in-law before everything unraveled. Our bond was smooth, filled with warmth, perfection, and mutual respect. My husband, Frank, was the love of my life, my partner in crime, and my best friend. From my perspective, everything seemed picture perfect. This isn't a delusion or oversight on my part. Sure, we had our arguments like any normal family, but there were no red flags, and all seemed well. However, the shocking turn of events that followed left me bewildered. Let me narrate the incident and explain why I chose to seek revenge on my husband and mother-in-law. I had planned something special for our family, a vacation originally meant for Frank and me. However, considering Tiana, my widowed sister-in-law, and her loneliness, I decided to include her. I sponsored most of the trip, covering accommodation, meals, and activities. Frank and Tiana were only responsible for their additional expenses. The plan was to treat them to a once-in-a-lifetime vacation in Spain, exploring Barcelona's vibrant streets, savoring tapas, and enjoying the Mediterranean sunshine. The thought of creating lasting memories and strengthening our bond excited me. Little did I know that this grand adventure would lead to events that shook the foundation of trust and shattered the illusion of our perfect family. Backtracking to that fateful day, filled with hope and promise for our Spanish dreams, I stood in the living room holding plane tickets with a smile on my face. Gathering Frank and Tiana, I revealed the surprise. They exchanged puzzled glances, curiosity etched on their faces. Tiana, with her wise eyes, tilted her head slightly. With a flourish, I presented the tickets and shared my plans for our Spanish adventure, hoping to see joy and gratitude in their eyes. Frank's face lit up, expressing genuine anticipation. "Felicity, you truly are something else," he explained. Anticipation bubbled within me as I eagerly awaited the commencement of our extraordinary journey. Tiana, on the other hand, donned a gentler smile, her gaze meeting mine. "Oh, my sweet Felicity, you've truly outdone yourself. This is a gift beyond measure." "I'm deeply touched," she expressed. In that moment, pride and contentment swelled within my heart. Their reactions were a validation of the love and effort I had poured into this surprise. I had envisioned this vacation as the adhesive that would strengthen our bonds, creating unforgettable memories and fortifying the already seemingly unbreakable ties. However, as you might suspect, this tale takes a treacherous turn. Beneath the facade of our seemingly idyllic relationship, a complex web of deceit and betrayal lay in wait, ready to ensnare us all. When the truth unraveled, it would challenge the limits of forgiveness and test the very essence of family bonds. As planned, we boarded the plane, embarking on our 2-week adventure. The anticipation was palpable as we immersed ourselves in the vibrant streets and rich tapestry of Spanish culture. The first week unfolded seamlessly, with the flavors of paella, exploration of historic landmarks, and dancing to the infectious rhythms of flamenco. Laughter and joy filled the air, and I reveled in the belief that our bond was unbreakable. However, little did I know that a storm was brewing on the horizon, waiting to unleash its fury upon my unsuspecting heart. On a fateful Monday morning, as the sun bathed the city in golden hues, I woke up to find an empty hotel room. Confusion and a growing sense of unease gripped my heart. Frantically, I reached for the phone, dialing both my husband's and Tiana's numbers, hoping for an explanation. But to my dismay, their phones remained silent, their voices absent. Fear began to claw at the edges of my mind as I searched the empty room for any sign of their presence. No notes, no bags, no traces of disturbances or struggle. Just an unsettling silence that hung heavy in the air. It seemed I was left alone in a foreign land, and the minutes felt like an eternity. As despair threatened to consume me, A glimmer of hope pierced through the darkness. My phone buzzed, signaling an incoming call. It was Tiana. Relief washed over me, mingled with confusion and a deep sense of hurt. How could she leave without a word? With trepidation, I answered the call, my voice filled with a mix of concern and disbelief. Tiana, where are you? What happened? I questioned. Tiana's voice, tinged with a strange mix of resignation and frustration, reached my ears. However, it wasn't the same sweet voice I had always known. It sounded colder. Felicity. I felt the need to return your calls since my phone was incessantly ringing. Oh, I'm sorry for disturbing you. I was just wondering where you two went. Your bags aren't here, and I was concerned that something bad had happened. With an indifference that shook me to the core, she uttered the next words, "We left you." But why? What happened? I couldn't bear to spend another week in your company, so I had to leave. Did I do something wrong? Yes. I mean, how could you be so dense? Dense? Excuse me. You sprung up this trip on me, practically forcing me to go with you. I couldn't remain disingenuous any longer. Let me spell it out clearly for you, Felicity. I don't enjoy your company. Sure, we can spend a couple of hours together at a family event, but 2 weeks? I tried to be civil and grace you with my presence for as long as I could. Turns out I could only master 1 week with you before I lost my mind. I'm sorry, but I'm on the way to the airport with Frank right now. We can't be around you any longer. Shock reverberated through my core as the revelation struck me like a bolt of lightning, unraveling the threads of trust I had so naively woven. How could our seemingly unbreakable bond crumble beneath the weight of unspoken grievances? Questions flooded my mind as I grappled with this harsh reality. What had I done wrong? What exactly did I do to deserve such harshness? How did things escalate to this point? Was there no chance for reconciliation? Confusion and heartache intertwined within me, the pain of betrayal seeping deep into my soul. I didn't know you felt this way, Tiana, honestly. And you had no reason to. I'd always led you to assume that things were fine and dandy between us. Why not bring that up? Why not sit me down so that we could hash out whatever problem there was between us? Because if I'm being honest, I still don't know what I've done to wrong you. That's the thing. I just can't put my finger on it, but you just irk me. What? That's the most childish thing I've ever heard. You can't stand me just because of some inexplicable irk? Grow up, Tiana. I thought I offended you or something, but I didn't do anything wrong, right? Not necessarily, but it doesn't matter. What matters is how I feel about you, and I feel that you're annoying, and I just can't stand being around you. If that's the case, then why did you say yes to coming with us on this trip? Because it was a free trip to Spain. No one is going to turn down that opportunity. But as the days went by, I grew more and more tired of your antics. What antics, Tiana? What did I do that was so bad that you decided to leave me all alone in a foreign country? She failed to answer, and I grew more impatient with this impromptu disdain coming out of nowhere. I was shocked, hurt, confused, and angry. But most of all, I was just sad. I had to inquire about my beloved husband and what he had to say in all of this. Let me speak to Frank, casually and easily. Tiana passed the phone on to Frank. Assuming someone, likely Frank, was eavesdropping on the entire conversation, he responded with the same indifference and coldness as his mother. Hello. Really, Frank? You decided to leave me too. I didn't leave you because I don't like you. I left because my mom needed me to take her home. So you knew about all of this? How long have you known about your mother's apparent hatred towards me? For some time now. I was hoping this trip would bring her closer to you, but I was wrong. Okay, but what I'm failing to understand is why none of you approached me about this. We're all adults, meaning if there's an issue, we solve it. It's not like we haven't had arguments in the past. We sat down and solved those arguments. What's different about this time? Frank failed to answer, mirroring his mother's earlier silence. The only thing I can safely conclude about this entire stupid debacle is that your mother hates me for a silly reason, which she knows isn't valid. Maybe she's jealous of me or something. Maybe I have something she can't have. And she knows she can't speak up about it without sounding foolish. So she's beating around the bush. Am I correct in assuming that? Their resounding silence affirmed my assumption. Well, I can say that I'm honestly shocked. I didn't know that you two felt this way about me. I hope you have a safe flight back home. I cut the call, pacing around the hotel room, still trying to understand the issue. As I contemplated whether I deserved this treatment, I realized that 47 years on this planet had taught me that sometimes people hate for no apparent reason, driven by jealousy or bitterness. It's not uncommon, but the last people I expected this behavior from were my own family. After sobbing for some time, I had an epiphany, taking me back to the moment when I decided to take control of my destiny and seek vengeance against those who wronged me without cause. It was a pivotal moment that would forever change the course of my life. Wiping away my tears, a newfound determination welled up within me. I refused to waste any more precious emotions on their actions. It was time to show them they couldn't trample over my heart and get away with it. With trembling fingers, I dialed my childhood friend Arlo's number, knowing I could trust him with my darkest secrets. After pouring out my heart and explaining the painful betrayal, I cautiously asked if he could assist me in my quest for justice. Arlo, always the loyal and mischievous friend, listened intently, his voice filled with a mix of concern and excitement, reassuring me that he had my back. Felicity, my dear friend, you're a force to be reckoned with, and you know you can count on me for anything and everything. So, what are you planning on doing? Well, Arlo, you know how your construction company always has excess sawdust. Yes, it can be quite a hassle to get rid of sometimes. I believe I've found the perfect use for it. His curiosity piqued. I unraveled my plan like a carefully crafted script, detailing how we would execute the ultimate act of retaliation. Bags of sawdust would be delivered to Tiana's house, infiltrating every corner and crevice, leaving an indelible mark of chaos and betrayal. Arlo couldn't help but smile at the brilliance of my idea, a subtle yet impactful reminder to Tiana of the stress she had unleashed upon my life. Armed with Arlo's expertise and my newfound determination, we set our plan into motion. The question arose, how would we get inside the house before they returned? You need to get the spare key hidden under the potted plant on the patio. Then you'll be in. Wow, you thought of everything, huh? I'm not one to be played with. I think I'm a reasonable woman, but if they want to go lower and act childish, then I'll go even lower. Atta girl. As the hours passed, anticipation swirled within me. Arlo assured me that the mission was complete, and soon I would witness the fallout of our carefully orchestrated chaos. Then, like a sweet melody in my ear, my phone chimed with a message from Arlo. I eagerly opened the pictures he had sent, revealing a sight to behold. Tiana's once pristine home now resembled a post-apocalyptic wasteland, drowned in a sea of sawdust. Every nook and cranny had been touched by our mischievous hands, a scene straight out of a surrealistic painting, an embodiment of the chaos that had unfolded in our lives. I called Arlo, and his laughter echoed through the phone. I couldn't help but join in. It was a cathartic release, a shared moment of triumph against those who had betrayed me. I expressed my heartfelt gratitude to Arlo, acknowledging his willingness to tread the path of mischief with me. He simply said, "Naughty can be so satisfying, my friend." As the clock ticked away, I could feel the tension building within me. How would Frank and Tiana react when they walked through the doors of their once-beloved home? The anticipation was almost unbearable, a heady mix of nerves and vindication. I couldn't help but relish in the thought of their bewildered faces and disarrayed emotions. Hours later, my phone erupted with frantic energy. It was Frank, his voice laced with panic and disbelief as he described the chaotic scene that awaited them, the sawdust-covered house standing as a testament to their betrayal. My heart danced with wicked delight as I listened to his exasperated voice. At that moment, I knew that the message had been received loud and clear. Their actions had consequences, and the chaos they had sown had come back to haunt them. Felicity, It's just awful. Mom is in hysterics. I decided to reveal the part I played in this and said, "It serves both of you right. How could you leave me here alone without a valid reason, no less?" "Wake, Felicity, was this your doing?" The wailing and panic in the background stopped, and instead I approached Frank's phone. I heard my mother-in-law say, "Give me that," before shouting in my ear, "How could you do this to us?" To me. "I have no idea what you're talking about. Have you considered that this is just your karma?" "Oh, come on, Felicity. We all know it was you. Who else would have access to my home?" It's very easy to break into someone's home nowadays, Tiana, especially if you don't have any security cameras installed, which, by the way, you should seriously consider doing to prevent things like this from happening again. Honestly, Felicity, how can you do this to us? When are we supposed to sleep? This sawdust is making my lungs ache. Oh, that's right. You probably forgot to get the keys to my house, huh? Well, that's a shame. I'm guessing you two are going to have to stay in yet another hotel. But for how long? Until I decide to come back from my vacation, I guess. I mean, I paid for 2 weeks after all, and who knows, I might feel greedy and decide to extend my stay. Frank then took the phone from Tiana, and she began to bawl once again, mourning her ruined furniture. "Felicity, this was foul. How could you do this? I don't know why you're assuming that I had anything to do with this. I mean, how could I? I'm currently relaxing in the hotel jacuzzi. How could I have done this?" I held back my laughter as the two of them were clearly confused as to what had happened, even though they suspected I had something to do with it, which I obviously did. But they didn't have any solid proof, so I basked in all the glory of knowing that they were frustrated but had nowhere to direct their anger. As I bid Frank farewell on the phone, a sense of contentment washed over me. I had taken control of my narrative, leaving them to grapple with the consequences of their actions. I know what I did was quite foul and even quite dangerous considering how old Tiana is. I mean, spending even a night in that house could lead to serious health consequences. But I knew that they wouldn't dare to dream of staying there. It was too sabotaged to be habitable. They just had to rely on staying in a hotel for a little bit longer because I didn't want my money to go to waste. I stayed that extra week in Spain, enjoying the culture as I intended, while my husband and my mother-in-law were undoubtedly worried, trying to find a cleaning company that would take on such a daunting task. I didn't know how long it would take to get the house professionally cleaned, but I knew that in the meantime, my mother-in-law would have to stay with us in my home. And I knew that she would just be irritated the whole time since she apparently can't stand my company. This should serve as a reminder to some of you that some people need to learn the hard way. And if it just so happens that you can dish out your own justice, then by all means, go ahead and do it, and really give people something to be mad about. Hey everyone, I'm Claire, and I want to share a chapter of my life that revolves around challenging relationships with my in-laws and husband. Currently navigating the complexities of a divorce, I thought it might resonate with those of you who've experienced unwarranted criticism from your in-laws. Let me take you back to how it all began. I met Zane, my now estranged husband, on a dating site when I was a 19-year-old college student. Zane, at 25, had a stable job. Despite the age gap, love blossomed between us. I've never been one to judge based on age or appearance, so Zane's age was never a concern for me. However, Zane struggled with our age difference. He often questioned, "Why are you with me, Claire? I don't understand. I'm so much older than you. You could find someone your own age who's better suited for you." Yes, I could, but I don't want to. I fell in love with you, and age doesn't matter to me. Zane, burdened by insecurities, persisted. There must be other reasons, Claire. It's not natural for someone like you to love someone like me. I wish you'd tell me the truth. I am telling you the truth. I don't want to date boys my age. I love you, and that's all that matters to me. Despite my assurances, Zane struggled to believe me, revealing deep-seated self-esteem issues that may have contributed to his single status. Determined to prove the authenticity of my feelings, I embarked on a journey to demonstrate the depth of my love for him. Throughout our entire relationship, I refrained from letting Zayn spend money on me. While I wasn't a broke college student, I wasn't rolling in wealth either. Despite my financial constraints, I made sure to buy him gifts and cover my own expenses each time. I held a modest job, so I wasn't destitute. Zayn seemed to appreciate these gestures. Regrettably, Zayn's low self-esteem persisted, and he continued to doubt the authenticity of my love. Despite my best efforts to be supportive and understanding, his mistrust shattered my heart. It wasn't until the first 2 years had passed that I discovered the root of Zayn's self-esteem issues. Meeting his parents, Michael and Molly, shed light on his struggles. Michael, Zayn's father, had experienced a stroke of luck, winning the lottery and dramatically improving their lives. They purchased an extravagant house and secured their future with the remaining funds. However, Michael and Molly carried an air of superiority. During our initial encounter, Michael boasted, "Not everyone can make it big like me. I was a hard-working man, and look where it got me. Do you know how uncommon it is to win a huge lottery? The chances are very low, but I did it on the first try." They took pride in their decision-making skills, insinuating that Zayn, despite completing college, would never match their financial success. Molly hinted that Zayn's previous partners were gold diggers, leaving as soon as their financial situation improved. The couple openly questioned Zayn's ability to make sound choices. This attitude infuriated me. Zayn's parents indirectly accused every girl he dated of being interested only in his money. Over time, Zayn internalized these beliefs, contributing to his insecurities. The insinuation that I, too, was a gold digger became a humiliating part of the narrative. Fed up with the unjust assumptions, I decided to defend both Zayn and myself. I declared, "I'm sorry, but I have to disagree with you. Zayn has worked hard to establish himself in his career, and with time, he will achieve even greater success." Michael rebutted, "Well, that doesn't change the fact that women only want him for money. The money we have is ours, but Zayn does co-own the house. Ultimately, it will be his when we pass. Let me tell you, every time they see our $200,000 house, I swear these girls see dollar signs in their eyes." I can't vouch for Zayn's past relationships, but I'm certainly not in this for the money. I love your son, and that's the reason we're together. I have no interest in your house. Don't worry, Claire. Sometimes it's challenging to accept that people can be successful and live in nice houses. You live in a small rented apartment with roommates. After spending time around our house, you might start desiring it too. It's just a matter of time. Michael and Molly's comments were pushing my anger to the brink. I was on the verge of exploding. Zayn heard it all but chose not to respond or defend himself, steering the conversation in a different direction. His nonchalant attitude surprised me. On our way home, I decided to address it with him. "Zayn, your parents are being unkind. They're insulting both of us. Why didn't you speak up?" "What did you expect me to say, Claire? I can't be certain they're entirely wrong. Women in the past have used me to try and benefit from my parents' wealth. They made grand plans involving the house and how it would be ours once my parents passed away. Even if they were gold diggers, that doesn't mean I am one too. You stayed silent when your family insulted me as well. You know my family is well off now. There's a chance they're right about everything. I'm not saying you had bad intentions, but I can understand why it might seem questionable. You don't have parents, so you rely on my inheritance alone. What you're suggesting is absurd, Zayn. I've never pressured you to spend money on me. And just because I don't have an inheritance doesn't give you the right to label me a gold digger." Zayn remained unwilling to acknowledge my concerns. Insisting that he loved me, and the reasons behind it didn't matter, he shrugged off the need for further discussion. While some might have found solace in such assurances, I couldn't accept the thought of him harboring negative beliefs about me. I attempted numerous conversations, hoping to make him understand my perspective. I even suggested therapy, recognizing its potential benefits for him. However, he adamantly claimed there was nothing wrong, causing me to eventually abandon the effort. As time passed, I distanced myself from his family. We became engaged shortly after my college graduation, and although my job paid decently, I started saving to contribute to our wedding expenses. We split the costs evenly and got married when I was 22. However, the subsequent 3 years turned into a tumultuous period of my life. Zane frequently visited his parents, returning home in a sour mood each time. I knew Michael and Molly were still taunting him and branding me as a gold digger. Despite my pleas for Zane to limit contact with them, he continued to engage with his parents. Their words poisoned his perception of our relationship, convincing him that no one could genuinely love him. Even after years of love and care, Zane remained suspicious of me. The burden of constantly proving myself became increasingly draining. However, the breaking point arrived on Zane's birthday. In line with his preference for small celebrations, we had a quiet cake party at home. I presented him with the expensive watch he had desired. Zane was elated with the gift, but my joy waned when he suggested visiting his parents to showcase it. Despite my reluctance, I accompanied him at his insistence. Upon reaching their house, Zane eagerly displayed the watch to Molly and Michael. "Mom, Dad, look at this beautiful watch Claire gave me. I've been wanting it for a while now. Isn't it gorgeous?" "Oh, did she know, Zane? It seems she does love you after all. We were quite concerned for a while there." "Don't get carried away, Michael. She's a gold digger. She married our son because we own a $200,000 house. Let's not forget the facts." "Yeah, you're right. I almost forgot that the house is the only reason Claire married Zane." "Excuse me? Why do you think I married your son for your house?" "Well, you were just living in an apartment after working for 4 years. Besides, Zane is so much older than you. Why would you marry him unless you want something from him? I'm sure our house was always an attraction, if not his money." "I married your son because I love him. All your theories about my gold-digging intentions are wrong. Zane knows the truth, and he will tell you that, won't you, Zane?" To my complete surprise, Zane remained silent. I was already feeling uncomfortable with my in-laws' belief that I was a gold digger, but Zane's reaction, or lack thereof, shocked me. He kept his head down and avoided eye contact with me. Feeling perplexed, I decided to push him a bit. I couldn't fathom why he wasn't standing up for me. "Why are you not saying anything? Your parents always thought I was a gold digger. How will they know the real me if you don't tell them? Why are you quiet? Tell them they're wrong." I don't know what you want me to say, Claire. I don't know if my parents are off the mark. There might be a possibility that you're after this house." "Are you serious right now, Zane? You believe I married you for your assets?" "He's not wrong to think like that. It's suspicious that you've never considered buying a house. You haven't even discussed it with him. For someone renting a place, owning a house should have been a priority." "Yeah, it should be a priority, but you've chosen not to work toward owning a house. Our place is expensive, and you can't afford something like this even if you tried. So you decided to marry Zane and settle here. That makes more sense to me. I mean, why would you marry me, Claire? You might have feelings for me, but I think there's more to it than just love." I found myself speechless after this exchange. All the love I had for Zane seemed to have been reduced to nothing. At the end of the day, my in-laws and even my husband viewed me as a gold digger. While my in-laws' reaction bothered me, it was Zane's response that devastated me. In that moment, I made a decision. I wanted a divorce. I didn't immediately disclose my decision to them. I waited for the right time. So when Zane and I returned to our place, I contacted a lawyer and initiated the divorce process. The lawyer assured me that the papers would be ready within a week. In the meantime, I opted to stay in a separate room. Zane assumed I was just letting off steam and had no idea of what was coming. When the divorce papers finally arrived at my parents' house, I packed my bags and left. When Zane called me in a panic, I instructed him to come to an address and bring my in-laws along. Despite his confusion, he agreed. Upon their arrival, I was waiting on the porch. They looked taken aback by the house. I said, "You must be wondering why I brought you here. It's a beautiful house, isn't it? No one can compare their house to this. It costs around $2 million in today's market. Pretty expensive, but worth the money. There's also furniture with an added value of millions. What is this place, Claire? I don't know why you have access to such a house. Why don't you guys come in so that we can talk? I can't tell you everything on my porch. What do you mean by your porch? I brushed off their astonishment and walked inside. They trailed behind, even more impressed by the opulence within. The owners of the house had spared no expense. As we settled down, I took a deep breath and addressed them. I've reached a decision, and that's why you're here. I filed for divorce. Here are the papers. We can proceed with an uncontested divorce if you agree. What? I don't understand. Why are you filing for divorce? Zane's voice held a mixture of confusion and concern. Because you and your parents believe I'm a gold digger. You think I'm after your house, right? Despite my assurances, you refuse to listen. So I'll spare you from my gold-digging self and divorce Zane. It seems that's what everyone wants. You're considering divorce just because my parents told the truth. That's ridiculous. We didn't say anything untrue. Why the dramatics? Zane's tone betrayed his disbelief. I think this is for the best, Zane. If she's adamant, you should sign the papers. At least then you'll find someone who truly loves you. His mother interjected, her expression unreadable. Why did you bring us to this house? Do you expect me to buy this for you as part of our divorce settlement? Zane's voice carried a tinge of accusation. Why would I need you to buy this house, Zane? This house is already mine, I replied calmly. The shock and disbelief etched on their faces hit me like a bomb. They regarded me with disbelief, as if I were joking. Zane and his family seemed utterly unconvinced. How on earth can you afford a house like this? You're renting, and your job isn't enough to cover this. Stop lying to us, Zane's father demanded, his tone sharp with suspicion. I'm not lying, Zane. Remember when I mentioned that my parents left me some inheritance? Well, this is the house I was talking about. It's under a trust now, but I'll officially inherit it when I turn 30. I don't work a high-paying job because I have a trust fund waiting for me. That's impossible. Your parents passed away a long time ago. They should have let you have the house earlier. Well, you see, my parents were aware of the potential leeches I might attract. So they instructed me never to disclose the house or trust fund to anyone. Call it foresight. But they knew someone could exploit me. Hence, they placed everything in a trust to keep it safe until I reached 30. By then, I'd hopefully be settled with someone who genuinely cared about me, not my inheritance. Oh my God, Claire. You should have told us about your wealth. We had no idea. This is a sizable house you have. We could all live very comfortably here. Yeah, you should have shared that sooner. We thought you were after our house. We could have avoided all the misunderstandings. I'd always knew Claire was perfect for Zane. I've been saying she's a great woman. Look how wealthy she is. Zane really found a great match. Hearing this, I couldn't help but laugh. Their attitude toward me had shifted so rapidly that it made my head spin. What was even more bizarre was that they soon seemed to forget about the divorce filing. I took out the divorce papers and signed them. As I was saying, here's my signature for an uncontested divorce. You can just sign these to make it easy if you want to fight. We can take this to court. I won't live with you anymore. Claire, listen to me. There's no need to rush this. You've already proven you're not a gold digger. There's no reason to get a divorce anymore. We'll even apologize for any misunderstanding. That should make things better, right? Yes, Michael is right. We're sorry, Claire. We doubted you for no reason. I don't want your insincere apologies, Zane. For 2 years, you allowed your family to berate me and label me a gold digger. I expected you to at least defend me. But no, you sided with them and accused me of being a gold digger as well. I won't stay with someone who doesn't respect his wife. I'm done with you. We can part ways amicably or involve the courts. The choice is yours. Zane, Molly, and Michael tried their best to change my decision, pleading with me to let go of the past. In their minds, what happened was just a simple misunderstanding. Not once did they show remorse for tarnishing my name. Their audacity fueled my anger. When I reached my breaking point, I demanded they leave before I called the police. My anger intimidated them, and they left. Over the next few weeks, Zane and my in-laws continued to harass me daily. They begged, pleaded, and even offered bribes to convince me to stay. Their belief that I could be swayed with money only intensified my fury. It revealed that they still considered me motivated by financial gain. The irony was that, as Zane co-owned the house with his parents, I was entitled to half of his share. This realization fueled their desperation for reconciliation. Despite their attempts, I remained steadfast in my decision to part ways. I relocated all my belongings to my parents' house, asserting my right to stay there even before officially taking ownership. Zane and the in-laws persisted in reaching out, prompting me to change my number entirely. I wanted to avoid their constant attempts to contact me from unfamiliar numbers. Zane attempted to discuss matters at my workplace, but security was informed and asked him to leave. Zane still hadn't signed the divorce papers, holding out hope for a change in my decision. Nearly a year has passed since I initiated the divorce proceedings. With only a year or less remaining before the legal process concludes, I've managed quite well on my own. Living independently, I've found happiness and financial stability. While I've gone on dates, I'm not considering anything serious at the moment. According to a cousin of Zane's, they are apprehensive about paying me my entitled share of the house. Legal fees are piling up, and their savings are insufficient. Zane is even pushing for a sale, harboring resentment toward his parents for the upheaval in his life. At this point, I simply don't care and only want to be free from that toxic family.
The blueprint revisions for the downtown office complex covered my kitchen table. Red ink corrections marking structural modifications that would save the client $2 million in construction costs. I finished calculating the load-bearing adjustments for the 32nd floor, cross-referencing wind load specifications against the updated foundation design, when 3 sharp knocks echoed through my apartment. I'm Victoria Nash, and for the past 14 years, I've been a structural engineer specializing in high-rise construction. My consulting firm, Nash Engineering Solutions, has designed earthquake-resistant frameworks for buildings across the West Coast, including the 70-story tower that now dominated the city skyline 10 blocks from my apartment. But most people who knew me casually, including my landlord, thought I was just a tenant who worked from home doing computer stuff. The knocking continued, more insistent now. I glanced at the clock, 8:47 p.m. on a Tuesday evening. Not typical timing for maintenance issues or neighborly visits. I saved my work, closed the laptop, and walked to the front door. Through the peephole, I could see Harold Brennan, my landlord for the past 3 years, flanked by 2 men in dark suits who looked distinctly uncomfortable. Harold's usual rumpled appearance had been upgraded to what appeared to be a new jacket and tie, though the effect was somewhat undermined by his perpetually anxious expression. I opened the door, maintaining the polite but distant relationship we'd established since I'd moved into the Meridian Towers apartment complex. "Good evening, Harold. Is everything all right?" He shifted nervously, clearly rehearsing whatever speech he prepared. "Victoria, I need to discuss some changes to your lease agreement. May we come in?" The 2 men behind him said nothing, but their presence was obviously meant to convey authority or intimidation. I stepped aside to let them enter, curious about what had prompted this unusual evening visit. My apartment was spacious by city standards, 2 bedrooms, 2 bathrooms, with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the financial district. I'd chosen it specifically for the home office potential and the structural integrity of the building itself, having reviewed the original architectural plans before signing the lease. The rent was reasonable for the location, and Harold had been a hands-off landlord who generally avoided tenant interactions. "Can I offer anyone coffee or water?" I asked, gesturing toward the living room furniture. Harold declined, but one of his companions, a thin man with calculating eyes, surveyed my apartment with obvious assessment. He noted the expensive computer equipment, the engineering texts on the bookshelves, and the framed certificates from various professional organizations. "Victoria," Harold began, his voice carrying a forced confidence that didn't match his body language, "the real estate market has changed significantly since you signed your current lease. Property values in this area have increased dramatically." I nodded politely. Market appreciation was hardly news in a city where tech growth had been driving construction booms for years. My own projects had contributed to that growth, though Harold had no idea about the scope of my professional involvement in the district's development. "I understand market conditions can affect property values," I replied. "Is this about the lease renewal negotiations? I thought we weren't scheduled to discuss that until next month." The thin man stepped forward, clearly the source of Harold's newfound assertiveness. "I'm Gerald Hoffman from Hoffman Property Management. We've been consulting with Mr. Brennan about optimizing his portfolio's revenue potential." Ah, Harold had hired a property management company, probably lured by promises of increased rental income through aggressive tenant management. I'd seen this pattern before. Small landlords getting convinced to sacrifice stable, long-term tenants for short-term profit maximization. "The current rental rates for this building are significantly below market value," Hoffman continued. "We've identified substantial opportunities for revenue enhancement through strategic lease restructuring." Translation: they wanted to force out existing tenants to justify massive rent increases for new ones. It was a common gentrification strategy, though typically implemented with more legal finesse than this evening's intimidation approach. Harold cleared his throat. "Victoria, your rent is increasing to $4,500 per month, effective immediately. If you can't agree to the new terms, we'll need you to vacate by tomorrow morning." I kept my expression neutral while processing the implications. My current rent was $1,500 monthly. They were proposing to triple it overnight. More significantly, they were attempting to implement this change outside normal lease procedures without proper notice or legal justification. "That's quite an increase," I said calmly. "May I see the legal documentation supporting this change?" Hoffman's smile had sharp edges. "Market conditions don't require extensive documentation. You can accept the new terms or find alternative housing. Given the current rental market, I doubt you'll find anything comparable at your previous rate." The second man, who'd remained silent until now, finally spoke. "We've brought security personnel to ensure a smooth transition if you choose the vacation option." Security personnel. They'd brought muscle to intimidate a tenant into accepting illegal rent increases. This was moving from aggressive property management into potential extortion territory. "I appreciate you coming by to discuss this," I said, maintaining my calm tone. "Before I respond, could you give me a few minutes to retrieve some paperwork from my files? I want to review my lease terms and legal options." Harold nodded eagerly, probably assuming I was preparing to negotiate or surrender. Hoffman checked his expensive watch with obvious impatience, while the security contractors positioned themselves near the door like they were preventing an escape attempt. I walked to my home office, closing the door behind me. The filing cabinet in the corner contained the usual tenant documents, lease agreements, rent receipts, correspondence with Harold about maintenance issues. But in the bottom drawer, secured in a fireproof document box, were papers that would fundamentally change the evening's dynamic. I'd purchased the Meridian Towers building 8 months ago through Cascade Holdings, one of several shell companies I used for real estate investments. The acquisition had been part of a larger portfolio purchase involving 6 properties across the downtown district, financed through my engineering firm's substantial profits from recent construction projects. Harold had been struggling with building maintenance costs and falling behind on property tax payments. When Cascade Holdings approached him with a generous offer, he'd accepted immediately, though the sale terms included a management agreement that allowed him to continue operating as landlord while we handled ownership responsibilities behind the scenes. The irony was that Harold had been paying rent to my company for months while simultaneously collecting rent from tenants who had no idea about the ownership change. He'd signed paperwork acknowledging Cascade Holdings as the new owner, but apparently hadn't connected that information to his tenant Victoria Nash's actual identity. I pulled out the deed, property transfer documents, and Harold's signed management agreement. The papers clearly established my ownership of the building Harold was now trying to evict me from, using intimidation tactics that violated both his management contract and basic tenant rights. Returning to the living room, I found Hoffman examining my engineering certificates with obvious confusion. He'd apparently expected to find evidence of financial instability, not professional credentials suggesting substantial earning potential. "These are impressive qualifications," he said, gesturing toward my structural engineering license. "What exactly do you do for work?" "I design buildings," I replied simply, settling into my chair with the document folder. "Now, about this rent increase." Harold leaned forward eagerly. "Have you decided about the new terms?" "I've reviewed my legal position, and I have some concerns about your proposed changes." I opened the folder, placing the first document on the coffee table. "This is the deed to the Meridian Towers building, filed with the county recorder's office 8 months ago." All 3 men leaned forward to examine the document. Harold's expression shifted from confident to confused as he read the property details. Hoffman's sharp smile faded as he processed the legal language. "According to this deed," I continued, "the building owner is Cascade Holdings LLC, which acquired the property from Harold Brennan in a transaction completed last March." Harold nodded slowly. "Yes, that's correct. I sold to Cascade, but retained management responsibilities under a service agreement." "Excellent. Then you'll recognize this document." I placed the management agreement on the table. "Your contract with Cascade Holdings, specifying your duties as property manager and the limitations on your authority." Hoffman snatched up the agreement, scanning the text with growing alarm. The contract clearly outlined Harold's responsibilities and explicitly prohibited arbitrary rent increases without owner approval. "Harold," I said gently, "according to Section 12 of your management agreement, any rent adjustments require written approval from Cascade Holdings' authorized representative. Did you obtain that approval before tonight's visit?" His face had gone pale. No, I thought. Hoffman said market conditions allowed. "Market conditions don't override legal contracts," I continued. "More importantly, Section 15 prohibits intimidation tactics against tenants, including threats of immediate eviction without proper legal notice." I placed the final document on the table. "This is Cascade Holdings' Articles of Incorporation, filed with the state. You'll notice the authorized representative's signature matches mine." The silence that followed was profound. Harold stared at the documents, slowly connecting pieces he'd somehow missed despite signing them months earlier. Hoffman looked like he was calculating how quickly he could distance himself from the evening's activities. "Your Cascade Holdings?" Harold whispered. "I'm the principal owner, yes, which makes me both your tenant and your boss, Harold. Though after tonight's performance, we need to discuss whether our management arrangement should continue." The security contractors had stepped back toward the door, clearly recognizing that their services were no longer required or welcome. Hoffman was examining his phone, probably searching for exit strategies that didn't involve legal liability. "This is impossible," Hoffman protested. "Property owners don't rent apartments in their own buildings." "Why not? I wanted to live downtown near my work. This building met my requirements, and the apartment was vacant when I moved in. The fact that I later purchased the building doesn't invalidate my tenancy." I stood up, gathering the documents. "Harold, your management contract included provisions for situations like this. Tomorrow morning, I'll need you to provide a written report explaining tonight's attempted rent increase and the rationale for bringing security personnel to intimidate a tenant." "Victoria, I had no idea." "That's precisely the problem. You had no idea who you were dealing with, what legal authority you actually possessed, or what consequences your actions might have." Hoffman finally found his voice. "This whole situation is highly irregular. Property owners have rights that supersede tenant protections. Property owners have responsibilities that include following their own management contracts and respecting tenant rights, neither of which happened tonight." I walked to the window, looking out at the city skyline where several buildings bore my engineering signature. The irony of the evening wasn't lost on me. I designed earthquake-resistant structures that could withstand natural disasters, but apparently hadn't protected myself against landlord stupidity. "Gentlemen, I think this meeting is concluded. Harold, please review our management agreement tonight and call me tomorrow morning to discuss how we prevent similar misunderstandings." Hoffman was already heading for the door, his property management services apparently no longer required. The security contractors followed without a word, probably relieved to escape what had become a legally complicated situation. Harold lingered, looking genuinely distressed. "Victoria, I'm sorry. Hoffman convinced me that aggressive management would maximize property values. I never intended to create problems for good tenants." "Harold, you've been managing this building for 3 years. In that time, have I ever been late with rent? Have I caused property damage or tenant complaints?" "No, never. You've been an ideal tenant. Then why would you risk losing me for a theoretical rent increase that might not even be sustainable in the current market?" He sat down heavily on my couch. "Because I've been struggling financially. The building maintenance costs, property taxes, insurance, it's been overwhelming." When Hoffman showed me revenue projections with higher rental rates, it seemed like the solution to all my problems. I understood his financial pressures better than he realized. The property acquisition paperwork had revealed Harold's debts, deferred maintenance issues, and mounting expenses that had motivated the sale. But attacking stable tenants wasn't the solution to building management challenges. "Harold, financial problems require sustainable solutions, not quick fixes that alienate tenants and potentially expose you to legal liability." Over the following hour, we discussed the building's actual financial situation. Harold's management approach had been reactive rather than strategic, addressing problems as they arose instead of planning for long-term sustainability. Higher rental income was indeed possible, but through unit improvements and strategic marketing rather than intimidation tactics. "What happens now?" Harold asked as our conversation wound down. "Now you continue managing the building under our existing agreement, but with better understanding of your actual authority and responsibilities. Cascade Holdings will also provide additional resources for property improvements that justify gradual rent increases through normal lease renewal processes, and the Hoffman property management contract. I'd recommend terminating that immediately. Their approach creates legal liability without providing sustainable value." A week later, I sat in my apartment reviewing engineering plans while Harold knocked on my door again, this time alone, during normal business hours, and with a much more professional demeanor. "Victoria, I wanted to update you on the building improvements we discussed." I invited him in, noting his more relaxed appearance. The stress that had driven him to desperate measures seemed considerably reduced. "The property management contract with Hoffman has been terminated," he reported. "I've also scheduled consultations with contractors about the lobby renovation and elevator modernization projects." "Excellent. How are the other tenants responding to the improvement announcements?" "Very positively. Several have expressed interest in lease extensions once the upgrades are completed. No one's mentioned the awkward visit last week." I hadn't shared details about our unusual landlord-tenant-owner relationship with other building residents. Harold's learning experience didn't need to become neighborhood gossip. "Harold, I have a proposal that might interest you. Cascade Holdings has been considering property management expansion, and your building experience could be valuable for our other holdings." His eyes lit up with genuine interest. "What kind of expansion?" "We've acquired properties throughout the district that need experienced local management. The compensation would be significantly better than your current arrangement, and you'd have proper company support instead of operating independently." Over the next month, Harold transitioned from struggling individual landlord to regional property manager for Cascade Holdings' real estate portfolio. His intimate knowledge of building maintenance, combined with proper financial backing and legal support, transformed him into an effective property management professional. The Meridian Towers building underwent systematic improvements that justified gradual rent increases for new tenants while maintaining affordable rates for existing residents who had been stable, responsible occupants. My own rent remained unchanged, though I occasionally received building improvement updates from Harold in his capacity as property manager rather than landlord. 6 months after the confrontation that had started our complex relationship, Harold stopped by my apartment with coffee and the building's quarterly financial reports. "Victoria, I wanted to thank you for not firing me immediately after that disastrous evening with Hoffman. Everyone deserves the chance to learn from mistakes, provided they actually learn. I've been thinking about what would have happened if you'd been a normal tenant facing that kind of intimidation. Someone without legal resources or financial stability. It would have been devastating. Forced relocation, legal costs, potential job disruption. Exactly the kind of situation tenant protection laws are designed to prevent." Harold nodded thoughtfully. "I've implemented new procedures for all the Cascade properties. No rent adjustments without proper legal review, no intimidation tactics, and mandatory mediation for tenant disputes before considering eviction procedures." "How are the other property managers responding to the new protocols?" "Better than expected. It turns out that treating tenants with respect actually reduces management headaches and legal liability." Who would have guessed? We both laughed, recognizing the irony that basic human decency also happened to be good business practice. A year after the incident, I was reviewing architectural plans for a new downtown development when Harold called with an unusual request. "Victoria, I have a potential tenant for the penthouse unit who specifically asked about meeting the building owner. Apparently, they've heard about our management approach and want to discuss a long-term lease directly." "That's interesting. What type of tenant?" "A federal judge who's relocating to the city. She's been dealing with landlord issues in her current location and wants assurance about building stability and management practices." I agreed to meet with Judge Patricia Connors, curious about her specific concerns. The conversation revealed that she'd been researching downtown properties and had identified Meridian Towers as having unusually stable management and satisfied tenants. I've seen too many landlord-tenant conflicts in my courtroom, Judge Connors explained. Properties with ethical management practices are increasingly rare, and I'm willing to pay premium rent for peace of mind. What convinced you that this building met your requirements? Tenant reviews consistently mentioned respectful management, prompt maintenance response, and transparent communication. Several residents specifically noted that they'd never experienced intimidation or arbitrary policy changes. Harold beamed with pride. The transformation from desperate landlord to respected property manager had clearly exceeded his own expectations. Judge Connors, I said, you'll find that our management approach prioritizes long-term tenant satisfaction over short-term profit maximization. We've learned that stable, respected tenants create more value than aggressive rent extraction. That's refreshing to hear from a property owner. After Judge Connors signed a 5-year lease for the penthouse, Harold and I reflected on how dramatically our building's reputation had improved. You know, Harold said, that night when I showed up with Hoffman and those security guards was the worst mistake I've ever made as a landlord. And the best learning experience? Absolutely. I went from treating tenants as profit sources to recognizing them as community members whose satisfaction directly affects property value. Harold, would you be interested in speaking at the Property Management Association's annual conference? Your experience could help other landlords avoid similar mistakes. He looked genuinely surprised. You think other property managers would be interested in my story? I think they'd benefit from understanding how ethical management practices create sustainable profits while aggressive tactics create legal liability and tenant turnover. 6 months later, Harold delivered a presentation titled From Intimidation to Integration, Building Value Through Tenant Respect to over 300 property management professionals. The response was overwhelmingly positive, with several management companies requesting consulting services about implementing similar approaches. The presentation also caught attention from the City Council's Housing Committee, which invited Harold to participate in developing new landlord-tenant mediation programs designed to prevent aggressive eviction tactics. Victoria, Harold said after his first committee meeting, they want to use our building as a model for ethical property management practices. How do you feel about that level of public attention? Honestly, proud. 3 years ago, I was a struggling landlord making terrible decisions out of desperation. Now I'm helping develop policy solutions that protect both tenants and property owners. The committee work led to Harold being appointed to the city's Affordable Housing Task Force, where his combination of property management experience and tenant advocacy perspective provided valuable insight for policy development. It's ironic, he reflected during one of our quarterly building reviews. The night I tried to intimidate you into accepting illegal rent increases was the beginning of the most successful period of my career. Sometimes the biggest disasters become the most important learning opportunities. Though I still can't believe I brought security guards to threaten someone who owned the building. We both laughed, recognizing that the evening had been simultaneously Harold's worst decision and the catalyst for dramatic positive change in his professional approach and personal values. 2 years after our initial confrontation, Meridian Towers had become one of the city's most sought-after residential properties, with a waiting list for available units and rent rates that reflected quality rather than exploitation. Harold's management company had expanded to oversee 40 properties throughout the region, all operating under the ethical principles he developed through our unlikely partnership. Victoria, Harold said during our latest quarterly meeting, I have a confession. What's that? For the first 6 months after I learned you owned the building, I was terrified you were going to evict me as property manager. Why would I do that? because I demonstrated such poor judgment and created legal liability for your company. I smiled, thinking about the journey we both traveled from that disastrous evening to our current successful collaboration. Harold, the best property managers are the ones who learn from mistakes, rather than repeating them. You've proven that ethical management isn't just morally right, it's also more profitable and sustainable than aggressive tactics. And you've proven that property owners can prioritize tenant welfare without sacrificing business success. Sometimes the most effective way to protect your investment is to treat people with respect and dignity, regardless of the power dynamics involved. Looking back, the evening when Harold showed up with security guards demanding triple rent was a perfect example of how assumptions can create catastrophic miscalculations. He'd assumed I was a financially vulnerable tenant who could be intimidated into accepting illegal demands. I'd assumed my role, as both tenant and owner, would remain comfortably separate. Both assumptions were wrong, but the collision between them created something better than either of us had imagined. A property management approach that demonstrated how ethical business practices could generate superior results while treating everyone involved with respect and dignity. Sometimes the best outcomes emerge from the most uncomfortable confrontations, provided everyone involved is willing to learn from the experience rather than simply defending their initial positions.
I will never forget what my father told me when I announced my engagement. He took me to the side and said, "Zoe, are you sure about marrying this man, Peter? I know you're in love with him, but I don't think he's a good match for you." "Why are you saying this, Dad? He loves me and respects me. I don't care if he's not as well off as us. I know that, Zoe. You know, I built my riches from nothing. I would never disrespect the person who does not belong to my economic class. But Peter is a very sketchy man, and his mother is no different." "What do you mean, Dad? I don't understand." "Call it a father's instinct, so. This man doesn't love you. Yes, he showers you with affection, but always talks about how rich you are. I heard him flexing to his friends that he bagged the rich brat." Julia just laughed with him and agreed. "You must be mistaken, Dad. Peter would never say those things about me. Julia also loves me a lot. I'm sure she would scold Peter if he tried to joke like that." Sometimes I wish I had listened to my father. He didn't know what he was talking about. I was a stupid girl in love. My mother passed away 2 years before I got married. My dad was sick and wasn't long for this world. I was desperate to hold on to something that would give me the will to live. Peter and Julia became those people. My dad was a rich man. He made a series of good investments that made him very financially well off. I worked hard at my job and got a moderate salary as well. All in all, we were pretty comfortable in life. My husband Peter and his mom Julia weren't that well off. Yes, Peter did earn more than me, but he came from a very humble background. His field wasn't good enough to make him a millionaire. Peter did hold some resentment towards it. He and Julia liked sophisticated and expensive things. He often complained about not having enough money. I was always glad to help them out with the little allowance my dad gave me. I even let Peter and Julia move into my house after marriage, but neither Peter nor Julia were happy with my house. They said, "It's such a shame that you live in a small house. Your dad literally lives in a mansion. How come you bought such a small townhouse?" "I don't earn a lot, Peter. Dad lives in a mansion because he has lots of money. I'm a simple office employee earning a moderate salary. This house was difficult for me to buy as well. Dad helped me out with the down payment." "Well, if he helped you out, he should have got you a better place. I'm sure your mom had left him something to give you when you became older." "I'm not entitled to anything, Julia. Whatever my mom left behind is my dad's now. She died suddenly, so there was no will. I don't mind if I don't get anything. I'm happy with the way things are." "That's a ridiculous thing to say, Zoe. I sure would have loved to inherit a lot of money. You know what? Your dad should trade houses with us. He lives alone, so he doesn't need the space anyway, right, Mom?" "Yeah, Peter's right, so. You can ask. Absolutely not. That house is my dad's, and he deserves to live comfortably as long as he is alive. Well, he will be alive for long now that he's sick. We can wait and compromise for a few years and see what happens. Ultimately, everything will be yours after your dad dies. You will have plenty of money to buy a big house and more. The way Julia and Peter were already making plans to spend my inheritance was super disturbing. It also didn't help that they regularly asked me to ask my dad for more money. It's not like we were hurting for cash. Peter and Julia simply wanted the millionaire life, even if they weren't one. Honestly, I was getting tired of their behavior. However, the real drama happened after my father passed away. My dad's cancer took him away from me. Pretty soon, I was devastated but got little support from Peter or Julia. They were only concerned about the date of the will reading and didn't even help with the funeral. Hell, they refused to attend the funeral because my dad was no one to them. I was heartbroken and furious at that point. My dad's words kept coming back to me. I was getting suspicious of them and started to have doubts about their intentions. I was afraid that they were really after my inheritance money. They were not allowed to be in the reading of the will. Peter and Julia said, "Why the hell are we not allowed to read the will? This is ridiculous. Lawrence was my own father-in-law." "Yes, this is ridiculous. We are family and should be present for this event. We have the right to know what Lawrence left in the will. At least my son should be allowed to be there." "Your son is not in the will, Julia, so he cannot read the will." "Why are you two so obsessed with inheritance? You didn't even come to the funeral." It was funny how my dad was suddenly family when it came to getting an inheritance. I was pretty annoyed at Julia and Peter. What was worse was that they started to hound me as soon as I got back from reading the will. They were not allowed to see the will. I had a hard time dealing with the grief of losing my father, but I got no words of support or sympathy from them. They simply wanted to know about my inheritance. Julia asked me, "So we have been wondering about something for a while now. How much inheritance did you receive from your parents? You must have got a lot of money. How much money did you get?" "My parents unfortunately didn't leave me any money in my inheritance, so I received zero." "What? You didn't get any money? But your parents were rich. They should have left you something. I don't believe that you didn't get any money. I'm sure you are lying to us all. There is no way your parents didn't leave you a single penny." "No, Peter. There was no money in my inheritance. The will didn't even mention me getting any kind of money. You can check my bank balance in a few days and find out." "But what about their riches? Who will get those? You are their only child." "I don't know about that, Julia. The lawyer just told me that I didn't get any money. It's fine by me. It was my parents' money, and it's up to them who they would give it to." "That is ridiculous. You need to fight for the money. It should be yours." "There is no money, Peter. They didn't have much money in the end. Whatever was left was given to charity. They have been planning this for a while now." Julia and Peter looked very pissed by what I said. I had no idea why they were being this weird about my inheritance. I almost told them the full details, but something stopped me from doing it. There was this creeping doubt in my mind that my husband and mother-in-law were up to something. I waited for them to digest the news. When Julia and Peter kept pressuring me for more information, I put my foot down. I told them firmly that I didn't get any money and even offered to show them my account in a few days. Well, a month passed, and nothing showed up. In the meantime, Peter grew very restless and stopped being affectionate with me. He was always checking my account and constantly hounding me for information on my inheritance. I was starting to see where this was going. Finally, one day, I decided to put an end to it. I showed them my bank statements and said, "See, I told you that I didn't receive anything. I'm not hiding any secret inheritance money from you. Do you believe me now?" Wow, our years of hard work just went down the drain then. So his parents weren't rich, and she didn't even get $100 in the will. This is ridiculous. I can't believe this. I can't believe this either, Mom. I stayed in this marriage for nothing. I married Zoe for nothing. It was all a waste of time. What the hell does that mean, Peter? Why are you talking like this? Why do you think he's saying these things so? Who the hell would marry you without thinking about the money? My son simply married you so that we can bank on your inheritance. Now I see that you didn't even get a penny. I can't believe I wasted 5 freaking years on a useless girl like her. I could have done so much better. I was stunned to hear them speak that way about me. I could finally tell that Peter married me for money. My parents were right about him and his mom. They were freaking gold diggers. I was so freaking done with my husband and mother-in-law. I was breaking inside, but what they said next turned me into stone. Julia looked at Peter solemnly and said, "What is done, Peter. But now it's time for you to divorce Zoe. There is no reason why you should stay with her anymore. You will have time to find a new rich wife. This time, we will make sure she actually has some money to her name." Are you freaking kidding me, Julia? You are asking Peter to divorce me over money. Peter, are you going to listen to her? Of course, I would listen to her, Zoe. I married you so that I and my mom could have a comfortable life. We grew up poor, and I didn't even go to college. I had no way of earning a lot of money. So, you pretended to love me and then tricked me into marrying you. You thought that my parents would give me lots of money that I would readily share with you. Yes, that's what I thought. It was the only way I could give my mom the life she wanted. But now I see that my efforts were in vain. Mom's right. I need to divorce you and keep looking. I was stunned by what Peter said. He said those things so nonchalantly that I started to question my own sanity. Julia and Peter went on to express their frustration at my marriage and myself. I didn't hear a word after a while. I was too busy coming to terms with what they just threw at me. Their total lack of reaction and Peter's sudden shift in behavior were both depressing and angering to me. After a point, I was so mad that I wanted to scream and throw things. However, I didn't do any of that. I calmly said, "Okay then, Peter. If a divorce is what you want, you will get it. I was never the one to say no to your demands. I might as well give in to your demand now as a last favor. So, you will agree to a mutual divorce. It'll save us both a lot of money. By the looks of it, you don't have much to go on anyway. Don't think of this as an opportunity to get alimony from my son. We will fight you tooth and nail before you give up that dream. You better preserve your lawyer fees and agree to a mutual divorce. It'll be best for you." You're right. I don't have a lot of money right now, so I decided something. I will agree to a mutual divorce, but you have to sign a clause saying that we won't share any of our assets with each other. That's not a problem at all. You don't have much, and neither do I at the moment. If you can forego alimony, I'll agree to sign a divorce and won't claim anything from you. Me and Peter discussed the details of the divorce and made sure we were on the same page. I could see that Julia and Peter were both happy about me not making a fuss out of the divorce. I guess they didn't expect me to be so calm about it. Truth be told, ever since that day, I have been crying on my way to and from work. I used to sit in the parking lot of my office and cry for an hour before and after work. Peter never noticed my puffy eyes or even asked why I was leaving early for work and coming home late. Julia didn't even bother looking at me after she discovered that I had no money. All of their behavior just made me even more determined to get out of the marriage as soon as possible. I actually had Peter and Julia move out of my house to a rented space in the neighborhood. They soon settled in while we waited for the divorce to finalize. True to his word, Peter didn't demand a share of my house. I also didn't ask for alimony. In his eyes, it was a fair deal. Well, he had no idea just how far I made things out to be. He came to know about it on the day our divorce was finalized. I went over to his new rented space to drop off my wedding and engagement ring. So, I just wanted to return these to you since the marriage only brought bad times in my life. I don't want to have any memory of it. Are you sure you want to return it? I mean, you might need the money after all. It's so funny, you know so. You must have laughed at our poverty before. Look where you are now. My son is being generous and giving you the rings. You might need to sell them when your stupid job doesn't pay enough. We want Mr. Rings. They're cheap ones anyway. What would I need to sell the rings for, money, Julia? You don't have to be embarrassed. So we already know how your parents didn't leave you anything. I guess they lost everything due to poor financial decisions, leaving their daughter destitute. At that point, I laughed very loudly in her face. Julia looked confused, and so did Peter. I could tell that Peter was somewhat annoyed by his mother's behavior, and he was also surprised at my laughter. Julia said, "Why the hell are you laughing, Zoe? Did I say something funny?" "It's freaking funny how you think I'm destitute, Julia. It's also funny that you think my parents lost all their fortune." "Well, of course, you're destitute. Your parents didn't even leave you a penny. They surely messed up and ruined your life by not leaving you an inheritance." "I never said that I didn't get an inheritance, Julia. I simply told you that I didn't get any money. My parents did, in fact, leave me plenty of inheritance." "What the hell does that mean? You have an inheritance." I'm so confused. "My parents could see you and Julia for the little gold diggers you two are. So they made a secret clause in their will. It said that I would receive no monetary inheritance. Instead, I was given this entire neighborhood as my inheritance." "What? You own this neighborhood now. How is that possible?" "We would have known about your inheritance if this was true. We even signed the lease with an estate manager who didn't tell us the name of the owner. My parents wanted me to wait for a year before I got my inheritance. They wanted me to test you too and see if you are really with me for money or love. Well, of course, you failed the test, and now you won't get anything from me. Also, the estate manager was appointed by my parents to take care of the property before I inherited it. They were smart people, you know." "That is impossible. I don't believe a word you're saying. You're just embarrassed because you don't have money anymore." "Oh, really, Peter? Is that what you and your mother have concluded from this? Well, why don't you call your landlord and find out from him? Don't worry, we would do that. Then everyone will see just what a big liar you are." Julia and Peter called their landlord and asked about what I said. Since their landlord was the estate manager, he told them everything. Julia and Peter were stunned. They looked really panicked. After cutting the call, they said, "You lied to us. You tricked us into thinking that you don't have anything, but you own the entire housing society now. How dare you trick us so? You wanted all your riches to yourself, so you tricked Peter into divorcing you and made him sign papers that he wouldn't claim anything from you." I laughed at their audacity to turn this one on me. It was finally dawning on them that they had messed up royally, and now it was time for some sweet karma. I said, "It's funny you accused me of tricking you too, Peter. You tricked me into marrying you by telling me that you love me. Julia, you helped your son in this plan, and you were the one to tell him to divorce me. If anyone here was being a scammer, it was you two. As for my inheritance, you asked me how much money I got, and I answered truthfully. This was all a misunderstanding. So, what happened is in the past. Why don't we just try again in the new light? We did spend 4 years together. It would be a shame to throw it away. So now you want me back in your life. Funny how you were desperate to start afresh with a new girl. I hear that you are already seeing someone rich. Don't worry, I'll inform her about what a snake you are." Peter and Julia started to beg me not to mess up this new relationship. Peter told me that since I wasn't ready to give him another chance, I shouldn't mess up his future. I told him to freak off. Also, I informed them that I will kick them out once the property is transferred to my name. They panicked at that and started to beg me even more. In the weeks that followed, Julia and Peter showed up at my house to beg me to forgive them. Peter and Julia already have an eviction on their record, so it is unlikely anyone would give them rent. The only reason they were staying on my property was that I asked the estate manager to allow it. I also called Peter's new victim and told her everything. She was horrified by what Peter and Julia did and broke up with him instantly. She even showed me the texts. After this fiasco, Peter and Julia beat down my daughter, called me names. I promptly called the police and had them off my property. After I got my inheritance in my name, I kicked them out very swiftly. They didn't expect me to go through with the threat. They did show up on my property again, and the police were called. The cops gave them a stern warning, and I filed for a restraining order. Turns out the entire town knew about what happened. They were essentially disowned by friends and had to leave the city to start afresh. Meanwhile, I'm enjoying my new wealth and am finally free from gold-digging leeches. Why does this unattractive girl still reside in her parents' house? It's quite bothersome. Could you kindly vacate the premises immediately? You clearly don't belong here. Pack your things and return to your parents' house. About a month after my husband passed away, I found myself living with and caring for my mother-in-law. These harsh words were directed at me by two individuals. Did I do something wrong? I've been contributing by paying $3,000 a month for rent. However, if they view me as a nuisance, I'll leave the house as they wish. A month later, an apology came from my mother-in-law, tears streaming down her face. But apologies alone won't resolve the issue. I decided to share a surprising fact with her. It had been a year since I married her son, and we have been living in their house. My husband and I shared a love for camping and outdoor activities, quickly bonding and leading to our marriage. Now I was taking care of my mother-in-law, who had been alone since my father-in-law's passing. Her initial animosity turned into gratitude, and we built a genuine parent-child bond. My husband and I had a decent income, and we were giving her $3,000 a month as rent. Despite this, financial troubles arose. My sister-in-law, who didn't live with us, began making frequent demands for money. I intervened when she asked for financial help, suggesting ways to cut expenses instead. My husband, realizing the need for his sister to become more self-reliant, firmly advised her to stop depending on their parents. This created a rift, but my sister-in-law reluctantly changed her behavior regarding money matters. Since my father-in-law's passing, my mother-in-law had been more lenient with money, often granting her children's requests. However, it became apparent that my sister-in-law was exploiting this generosity, demanding larger sums of money. Taking charge of the family's finances, my husband managed the situation. One day, as I went to work, he wasn't feeling well and had gone to the hospital in the morning. At first, I believed it was just a common cold, but during lunch, my husband called, revealing that it wasn't just a cold. They had discovered cancer. The tests indicated that it was quite advanced, and I was told I had approximately a year left to live. His shocking words rendered me speechless, and panic set in as my thoughts froze. After standing still for a while, reality hit me hard, and I rushed to the hospital where my husband was. At that time, my husband still had enough strength to converse normally, but as the treatment continued, his strength diminished. After 6 months, he could hardly talk. 7 months later, struggling to breathe, my husband tried to convey something important to me. The content of his words was surprising and left me in shock. I spent several days absorbed in those thoughts, but a week later, my husband passed away. I couldn't believe it. I couldn't grasp what was happening. However, after his passing, I was busy with a funeral week and settling his affairs. Days passed, and just when I thought I could finally start coming to terms with my husband's death, an unexpected incident occurred. I have something to talk about. Is now a good time? My sister-in-law asked. Of course. What would you like to talk about? How much did you hear from my brother? Actually, I heard that a spot opened up in a very popular nursing home that's hard to get into. Why don't we consider admitting Mom there? My brother is no longer here, and taking care of that old lady must be a hassle for you, right? My sister-in-law's smirk about this topic made my heart clench. To bring up such a topic right after my husband's death, but looking into her eyes, I could tell she was serious. This house is too big for just that old woman. Don't you think it's a waste if my family and I live here? You can live alone without any worries. I think it's the best choice for everyone. While my sister-in-law didn't say it explicitly, her remarks gave the impression that she had been eagerly awaiting my husband's death. The way she trivialized my husband's death and her disdainful attitude towards my mother-in-law I couldn't tolerate it anymore. I appreciate your suggestion, but I have no intention of doing such a thing. I plan to continue living with my mother-in-law, taking my husband's place. When I'd firmly declined, my sister-in-law left the house in a bad mood. Originally, it seemed she viewed my mother-in-law as a convenient source of money, so her attitude was not surprising. However, I was honestly shocked by her blatant actions. Nonetheless, I had no intention of letting my sister-in-law have her way, nor did I plan to put my mother-in-law in a nursing home. But an event a week later shook my resolve. Upon returning from work, I found my mother-in-law glaring at me angrily, and my sister-in-law smirking beside her. "I'm disappointed in you. I want you to leave this house. How dare you plan to put someone in a nursing home without consulting? What are you trying to do, take over the house?" "No, that's not my intention." "What do you mean? Why don't you just be honest? It was your proposal, wasn't it? You said to put Mom in a nursing home and sell this family home, and suggested we split the sale proceeds, didn't you?" "I never said such a thing." Shocked by this unexpected betrayal, I struggled to speak, but managed to express my thoughts. I was genuinely taken aback, completely unprepared for such forceful tactics just because things weren't going her way. The pain and sadness enveloped me as my mother-in-law looked down on me as if I were worthless. "I don't consider you family anymore. Please leave this house right now," she shouted at me with rage on her face. It seemed my mother-in-law had no intention of listening to me. "Understood. If that's what you want, I'll leave as you wish," I responded. Perhaps my sister-in-law had influenced her, but this was a clear betrayal for me, as I had decided to continue caring for my mother-in-law in place of my husband. I quickly packed my things and decided to return to my parents' home. I needed to find a new place to live and had a lot to do, but being kicked out by my mother-in-law deeply hurt me, so I decided to rest at my parents' home for a while. About a month later, my sister-in-law accused me of withdrawing money from our parents' account without permission. "Is that you? You withdrew money from our parents' account without permission, didn't you? Why is there not a single dollar left in the account?" "Don't say such ridiculous things. Are you calling me a thief now?" "Pretending you don't know. If you keep doing this, I'll get the police involved. Come to our parents' house right now." After saying this, my sister-in-law abruptly hung up the phone. Caught in someone's conspiracy and now being accused of theft, I had had enough. I had anticipated issues with the mortgage of the family home. There must still be several years of mortgage payments left unpaid. Honestly, I didn't have the time or energy to deal with my sister-in-law. I wanted to cut ties, but I had reasons why I couldn't. There was still a truth I had to reveal. With a heavy heart, I immediately headed to my in-laws' home. Just like the day I left, my mother-in-law glared at me, and my sister-in-law was there too, giving me the same look. Did he steal money from the house or withdraw it from the account? "I don't know, but give it back quickly. You both were working, right? So, there must be a significant balance, right?" "What are you talking about?" "There's nothing left of my father-in-law's inheritance. We've been covering all the living expenses and rent. Do you think the inheritance would cover everything?" "What, really?" My words left my sister-in-law looking at my mother-in-law in surprise. It was clear that there was an understanding between the two. My mother-in-law knew that we had been financially supporting the family home, but she probably thought that my father-in-law's inheritance was sufficient for a while. However, the actual situation was quite different. Maybe in this situation, isn't my mother-in-law the victim? Mother-in-law, it was your daughter who was misusing father-in-law's inheritance, wasn't it? At that moment, my mother-in-law's expression changed dramatically. There was an air of confusion, as if she couldn't grasp what I was saying. But I never lied to deceive others. The attitude of my sister-in-law made it clear that what I was saying was true. Her expression changed the moment the inheritance was mentioned, even though she had been glaring at me sharply before. "I've seen through the schemes you've been plotting and the misdeeds you've been committing. Actually, my husband revealed to me that since we started living together, he took over managing the household finances. He noticed a significant decrease in the inheritance supposed to be received by my mother-in-law, and he found it abnormal. Moreover, my sister-in-law's frequent and unusual financial requests seemed suspicious to him, so he confronted her. It turned out she had withdrawn cash from the inheritance without any permission. She was actually stealing. Wait, is that true? My sister-in-law stammered in confusion the moment I revealed the truth. My mother-in-law's anger immediately turned towards her. It seemed my mother-in-law hadn't realized the money was gradually decreasing, as she had been living modestly since my father-in-law's passing and never paid much attention to finances. My husband, being in accounting, was aware of even minor financial changes. This misdeed came to light when he confronted my sister-in-law. Yet, for my mother-in-law, her daughter remained precious, leading my husband to keep it a secret under the promise of repayment. The reason my husband sternly stopped her from borrowing money from my mother-in-law was because of this. I only learned about this a few days before my husband passed away. It was truly surprising, but it seems to be the truth. To steal someone else's money, even if they are family. What were you thinking? Can't you differentiate between what's right and what's wrong? My mother-in-law berated my sister-in-law. Stop making excuses, you thieving cat. Her face became increasingly red with anger, as if she was about to burst a blood vessel. Although not someone who clung to money, she had a strict moral compass, especially harsh on acts of malice and betrayal. Her decision to disown me, seeing my act of sending her to a nursing home as a betrayal, was also based on these values. These values applied not just to me, a non-blood relative, but also to her own daughter. However, I had more to reveal. Also, the large amount of money you got by betraying your family was used for gambling, right? Huh? Wait a minute. What are you talking about? My sister-in-law feigned ignorance. I've investigated everything. You'll understand if you look at these. I showed them several photos from an envelope. Pictures secretly taken by my deceased husband, clearly capturing my sister-in-law entering and exiting a casino. Your husband works for a foreign company, and you should be financially comfortable. My husband always wondered why you were so desperate for money. The investigation unexpectedly revealed your gambling addiction. Tell me, how enjoyable was it to gamble with someone else's money? What is this? This is called stalking. This is no joke. You're calling others thieves, and now this. And there's something else I need to tell you, mother-in-law. It was your daughter who suggested sending you to the nursing home. You know what? Finally, I've reached this point. It's time to reveal everything and then bring this to a close. My sister-in-law's true nature, previously unnoticed, was revealed through this incident. This should make my mother-in-law realize that blaming me was a mistake. Additionally, my mother-in-law was also manipulated by my sister-in-law's schemes. With the truth out, she should understand my position. I'm not sure if this will be conclusive evidence, but I want you to see this, I said, presenting my mother-in-law with the text messages between me and my sister-in-law. The history showed my sister-in-law sending me numerous links and nursing home suggestions, serving as evidence of her scheming. Were you really planning to abandon your own mother? That's not it. It's all a misunderstanding. Please just listen to my side of the story. My sister-in-law pleaded. It seems you plan to kick my mother-in-law out and live here with your family, right? This house isn't that old. It's still perfectly livable. Who was it that was thinking only of themselves, trying to take everything? Can you think about it calmly for a moment? As I spoke, my mother-in-law seemed to grasp the situation. She then looked at me sadly, as if she knew what she did was wrong, and turned her angry voice towards my sister-in-law. How selfish can you be to repay kindness with betrayal after all this time thinking of you as family? How do you see me? Don't mock me. Wait, just listen. There's a huge reason for this. At that moment, a loud noise echoed from the hallway, and footsteps followed as my sister-in-law's husband entered the room. Sorry I'm late. Got caught in traffic. It's okay. Oh, mother-in-law, I hadn't told you yet, but I asked him to come. I left the house key open so he could enter any time. Surprised by the sudden appearance of my sister-in-law's husband, both were taken aback. I explained the situation, and they quickly understood this issue wasn't just between me and my mother-in-law. It also affected my sister-in-law's husband. My sister-in-law's husband could easily access his salary and savings, raising further suspicions as she had been embezzling my mother-in-law's money. I had spoken to him in advance and arranged for him to hear the conversation via phone. I've been listening from the start. Enough with the excuses. Just admit your mistakes already. That's despicable. But what you've done is a serious crime. I was shocked when I checked the bank account earlier. It was a big mistake to let you manage our finances. The atmosphere froze in an eerie silence due to the incredible anger of my sister-in-law's husband. Having said all I wanted to say, I decided not to intervene further and just silently watched my sister-in-law's husband lecture her. His reprimands were so intense that it made me tremble just watching, but I didn't feel bad for her at all. I only thought about ensuring she repays the money, and that she shouldn't assume this would be the end of it. The lecturing continued for a while, and eventually, she knelt down to apologize to both me and my mother-in-law before leaving. According to my sister-in-law's husband, he had left the management of their household finances entirely to her, thinking they were saving and increasing their savings by cutting back on expenses. However, it turned out she was gambling away all the money saved. As her gambling intensified, she eventually incurred debts on her credit cards and began stealing money from my mother-in-law to pay it off. The total amount she owes from various sources is now more than what she has stolen from her husband and mother-in-law. Her husband, upon learning about this, decided to divorce her but plans to make her work to repay the full amount for the money she stole and the child support she misused. Until then, he had no intention of divorcing her and was constantly monitoring her behavior, hoping for her to change herself. It seems tough days are ahead for my sister-in-law. Later, my mother-in-law apologized to me for the misunderstanding, and we still meet for tea about once a month. Now that my husband has passed away, I want to maintain a good relationship with her, the mother who gave birth to him, and support her to the end. Since Michael and Sarah returned for a hometown childbirth, please leave. My mother-in-law stated in a chilly voice. Her eldest son and his wife are due in 3 days. Me leave? I asked, confused and stunned. Yes, we don't need another mother figure anymore. You've been redundant for a while now. Michael and his family will be living here, so make sure you're out by tomorrow, she continued. I knew I was never truly accepted into the family since the day I got married. Treated as a wife, never did I imagine they would tell me to leave. You barren failure, you were allowed to experience raising a child. Be grateful. We have no obligation to support you anymore. It seems like Simon is tired of you too. What's Simon to? I gulped down my saliva. If it's not a conspiracy between my mother-in-law and Michael, then I don't need to stand in ceremony with my husband anymore. Foolish to drive me out, but it was my mother-in-law who ignited this. What happens to this house now is none of my concern. May they face the reality they have ignored squarely. Personally, I'm Anna Thompson, 45 years old, living with my husband and mother-in-law in a popular area close to the station. The access to the city center is superb. When house hunting, my picky husband, recently promoted to a managerial position, insisted on a spacious apartment. The rent was steep, but the space and rooms made it worth the stretch. My husband, Simon, 8 years my senior, a divorce I met through a friend's introduction. Comforted by the enveloping kindness unique to an older man, we decided to get married after 2 years of dating. Even when I told him about my infertility due to past illness, his affection did not waver. Likewise, my feelings remained unchanged when I learned of the circumstances he carried. My husband had a son named Michael from his previous marriage. I'm truly sorry to ask you, who have never been married, to live with my parents and son. I won't make you suffer. I'll ensure you're happy, That was the promise he made to me. To prevent me from feeling suffocated, my husband suggested moving to a spacious apartment where I could have my own room. Michael, turning 10 this year, won't need much care with my mom around. You don't have to push yourself. After his divorce, my husband got help with childcare from his parents at their home. A few years later, Simon's father passed away in an accident, and it seems his mother took over as Michael's caretaker. From the first meeting, Michael wouldn't even make eye contact with me. I thought it might be his shy nature, approaching a difficult age, so I didn't worry. As long as they accepted me as a member of the household, I was content. My mother-in-law was a quiet and refined person. When I visited to formally introduce myself after our engagement, she treated me with such politeness that I thought we would get along fine living together. I'll continue to prepare the meals as I have been. Simon comes home late, so it's okay if we eat at different times, right, Anna? I'll leave the cleaning and laundry to you. All right, let's work well together. After getting married, I switched from a full-time employee at the pharmacy to a part-timer due to the division of household chores. I started work a bit later in the morning, so I wouldn't get home until nearly 8 p.m. Dinner was always ready when I arrived, making me feel good about living together. My mother-in-law and Michael usually had dinner before I got home, so I was always eating alone. Even after getting married, I sometimes felt a sense of, is this it? But I came to accept that this was our family style. From the beginning, my mother-in-law never really liked me and didn't consider me part of the family at all. Michael, the school's activity day is before summer, right? When is it? We're all going to see you. Sometime after getting married, I tried to break the ice with Michael, who still hadn't warmed up to me. No, as Michael faltered, my mother-in-law interjected, "We'll go there, just Simon and me. Anna, you don't need to worry about it." I misunderstood her words, thinking she was just being considerate. "I can get the day off work. Let's all go together." "You don't need that. You're Simon's wife. And mixed family has always been just Simon and me." I was quite shocked when I brought it up with my husband at night. He said, "Mom's been clinging to Michael. She probably thinks you're trying to take him away. I'll talk to her eventually." I began to join as a mother at the activity day, but Michael and I rarely spent any time together outside of school events. Sometimes I could tell Michael wanted to say something, but my mother-in-law always cut in between us. I later found out that she had been bad-mouthing me to Michael. Anna said she could be happy with Simon if Michael weren't around. She's a terrible person. Dad must be deceived by her too. If a boy in his formative years hears such things, it wouldn't be strange for him to distrust me. It was a sickening story, but at that time, I hadn't imagined that my mother-in-law could do such a thing. After graduating high school, Michael immediately moved in with his girlfriend and left home. As soon as he started college, a year after he started working, he married her without a ceremony. Once Michael moved out, my mother-in-law surprisingly stopped doing housework altogether. Instead, it seemed that picking on me had become her sole entertainment. She stopped cooking, which she used to do before, and now just sits at the dining table waiting for me to come home. Without a moment to sit down, I would stand in the kitchen and prepare dinner. "You're really inefficient. At this rate, it'll take you all night." I was never good at cooking, partly because I had always relied on my mother-in-law to prepare the meals. Whenever I did manage to cook, she would taste each dish and invariably complain, "This tastes awful." "I'm sorry, I'm trying my best." "You're astonishingly tone-deaf when it comes to flavors, Anna." "It's a good thing Michael never had to eat this." How terrible. If she thought so, she might as well make it herself. But it seemed she just wanted to complain to me, not just about the meals, but she started nitpicking everything from the cleaning I never used to do to the laundry. "Why are there so many wrinkles on the laundry? You have to vacuum every nook and cranny. You really can't do anything right. Didn't your family teach you anything?" With that, my mother-in-law sighed while looking at me being belittled. Even about my family, I clenched my fists in frustration. "I don't know how you won over Simon, but I can't see much charm in you as a woman." And she always concluded with the same line, If you hadn't come, Michael would have never left. I understood that there was a gaping hole in her heart since Michael had left. Maybe it was what they call empty nest syndrome. If taking it out on me made her feel better, that's what I told myself to endure it. But her bullying took on new energy after a certain event. That event was the pregnancy announcement from Michael's wife, Sarah. The joy my mother-in-law exhibited was unlike anything I had seen before. It's Michael's baby. It's bound to be adorable. Yeah, he'll be my first grandchild. Watching the two of them rejoice, I was happy too. But my mother-in-law's excitement was beyond normal, probably because Michael asked her, "Grandma, can Sarah have our baby at your place?" Sarah's family home is an hour away by plane, and since they have no one else to rely on here, they turn to us for help. Of course, my mother-in-law wouldn't dream of turning down Michael's request. The phone calls from Michael started to become frequent, and her excitement went through the roof. The next day after getting the news, she started preparing enthusiastically. From cleaning out Michael's room to preparing the bedding and making a list of baby items, it was like she had great-grandchild fever. Naturally, I had to get involved too. When I returned from work, I vacuumed Michael's room. "So you need to wipe the floors and the windows and please wax them too. This weekend we're going to the department store to look at baby cribs." Cleaning and waxing at night was tough, especially after a long day at work. If I even thought about cutting corners, I'd be told to do it over again. Moreover, my mother-in-law started asking for money, and before I knew it, the house was overflowing with baby stuff. "Anna, I need you to withdraw some money tomorrow. There are things I want to get ready for the baby again. Isn't it wasteful to prepare so much when Sarah and Michael haven't even arrived? Shouldn't we wait and choose together with them?" I had wanted to meet my mother-in-law's requests, but I was troubled by the relentless spending. How can you be so cold? It's Simon's grandchild. Oh, that's right. You're not related to Michael by blood. You don't care, do you? That's not true. Please don't say that. I just thought Sarah might want to pick things out herself. When do you want to choose things for your own child? Perhaps because I was making a valid point, my mother-in-law glared at me sharply. I immediately thought I had gone too far, but it was too late. Without a word, my mother-in-law went back to her room looking upset. I did reflect on it, but I was also shocked to be spoken about in such a way regarding Michael. The next morning, my mother-in-law didn't come out of her room, perhaps still angry. Simon had a 3-day business trip starting that day, so he just called out, "I'm leaving," through her door. Please don't throw cold water on Mom's great-grandchild fever. She hasn't been the same since Michael left. You were worried too, right? I was. But if we spend all our money like this, we'll have nothing left when Michael and Sarah arrive, right? Simon's face immediately turned sour. Are you saying my earnings are too low? That's not what I'm saying at all, Simon just said, "Fine," and left with a look of dissatisfaction. Discussions about money always end up like this. Since I'm the one managing our finances, I can't help but think ahead. Of course, there's a reason for that. We've been married for 13 years. Simon has provided me with a very comfortable life. Your part-time income is for you to enjoy. Simon had always told me so. I saved everything beyond what I needed for myself. Even though it's in my name, I consider it our shared property. But then Simon's company's performance declined, and over the last 5 years, his salary has dropped to 2/3 of what it was when we first got married. While there's uncertainty whether his company will last until his retirement, he doesn't seem to consider changing jobs. For appearances in front of my mother-in-law, my husband couldn't give up his title as a department head. Now I'm the one paying the rent, and he covers the living expenses. We've kept this from my mother-in-law to save my husband's face. That day, I left work a bit early to apologize to my mother-in-law. When I got home, she was already sitting at the dining table waiting for me. "I'm sorry about yesterday. I may have gone too far," I admitted, but my mother-in-law remained silent. Instead, she blindsided me with unexpected news. Michael and Sarah are returning for a hometown childbirth. Please vacate, my mother-in-law declared in a chilly tone. The eldest son and his wife were set to arrive in 3 days. Perplexed and stunned, I asked, "I have to leave." She affirmed, "Yes, we don't need another mother figure anymore. You've been redundant for a while. Michael and his family will be living here. Make sure you're out by tomorrow." The realization hit me hard. I had never truly been accepted into the family since the day I got married. I had always been treated as an outsider. The news of Michael's return for the birth made it clear. "You barren failure," my mother-in-law continued. "You are allowed to experience raising a child. Be grateful. We have no obligation to support you anymore. It seems like Simon is tired of you too. Maybe he's getting along well with a new girlfriend by now." Shocked, I gulped down my saliva, contemplating the possibility of my relationship with my husband growing distant. Could this be a trap I fell into, thinking my husband would never? I remembered that, up until a year ago, he never had overnight business trips. "All right, I'll eat out tonight," I said, grabbing my bag and leaving the house to walk aimlessly. I needed to calm my severely shaken heart. Worried about my husband, I tried calling his cell phone despite my mother-in-law's words. I still wanted to talk to him, but he didn't answer, no matter how many times I rang. I dialed his office, only to learn that he had taken a couple of days off. My mother-in-law's words began to ring more true. Could he really be on a trip with another woman? Dark thoughts crowded my mind, and I found myself overwhelmed with emotion, tears streaming down my face. Staggering along, I noticed the tavern behind the station, a place we used to frequent when we first moved here. "It's still here," I thought as I entered. "Welcome." The tavern owner's expression clouded briefly upon seeing me. Then he nodded in recognition. "Hey, long time no see. It's been about 8 years. I used to come here a lot with my husband," I said. "Yes, it's been a while." "I remember you," he replied. I couldn't help but smile, feeling a sense of relief. "Can I get a beer and a mixed plate of grilled chicken, please?" I asked. The owner, a man of few words as always, nodded. As I sipped the cold beer and savored the grilled chicken, I took out my cell phone, and the screensaver lit up with a photo of us when Michael turned 18. Looking sharp in the slim suit we had picked out together, I wished for us to be closer as a family. The beer washed down my throat, taking the day's fatigue with it. Could I really move out tomorrow? Contemplating the next steps, I searched for moving companies, finding one for the job the next day. I also looked up junk buyers and saved 2 companies in my favorites. Changing the screensaver on my phone seemed to clear my head completely. The beer and grilled chicken tasted exceptional. I decided to think about everything once I got home. Walking away from the tavern, I was called from behind. A young waitress from the tavern was running towards me. "Excuse me, are you Mrs. Thompson? I noticed the screensaver on your phone," she said. Confirming my identity, she dropped a bombshell. My husband was having an affair with one of their employees. We exchanged contact information, and she promised to keep me informed. My mother-in-law's words appeared to be true. Instead of sadness, a fierce anger welled up within me. It was time to confront this head-on. Booking an appointment with a moving company, I resolved to move out that day. If it wasn't a conspiracy, and my mother-in-law and Michael were truly involved, then I no longer needed to honor my husband. Returning home, I packed my belongings until midnight. Without hesitation, the moving company arrived on time, and I made it clear that I was leaving. As requested, they took everything I had bought, erasing every trace of my presence. My mother-in-law panicked, but I was resolute. "I'm taking everything I bought. You can start a completely new life tomorrow," I declared, suppressing a laugh. Ignoring her protests, I proceeded to have everything taken out. My mother-in-law complained loudly to the movers, but there was nothing she could do. The only items left in the house were piles of baby gear and her old dresser from before the marriage. "Well then, I bid you farewell. There should be no trace of me left, so enjoy your life with Simon, Michael, and his family," I declared, leaving her sitting there stunned. Placing the keys on the table, I exited the room. The movers held onto my things for a while. and I decided to stay with a single colleague for some time. Feeling a sense of completion, I slept soundly that night. A week later, I finally heard from my husband. I wondered if he was scheming with that other woman. While my husband was dragging his feet, I received a call from the young woman at the tavern. Got a good shot, so I'll send it to you. In the photo, my husband was chatting up a not-so-young woman at the tavern. Maybe out of a sense of justice, the young woman must have followed them after they closed. There was also a photo attached of the two entering a hotel. Even in such times, the cheating continues, I thought, and any last bit of affection I had for my husband dissipated. I asked for the woman's name and had her address looked up. The next day, armed with all the evidence of the affair, my husband called. Anna, where are you? Michael and his family are here too. Aren't you going to come home soon? No, I'm not coming back. Your mom told me to leave. I'm done here. Michael and his family are going to live with you now, right? I knew it. Michael and his family were out of money and looking to crash at our place. I heard that after graduating from a vocational school, they've been hopping from job to job, and now they're working part-time. No. I want you back, Anna. I went to the pharmacy, and they said you're off for a bit. Got a place to crash. Yeah, I'm fine. So don't worry about me. Your mom and Michael didn't like me, right? I reckon they're happy to have the place to themselves without me around. My snide comment left my husband speechless. He knew his mother and Michael never accepted me as family, but pretended not to see it. Well, all right. I have something to say, so I'll come back there once. My husband replied with a relieved please in his voice. Days later, I returned to the house for the first time in a long while. Some new pieces of furniture and appliances were inside. When Michael and Sarah saw me, they just nodded from their seats on the sofa without getting up. As I took a seat, my mother-in-law glared at me with a scary look on her face. The atmosphere was tense, and just as I thought to get things done and leave quickly, Michael spoke up. What are you doing here? You took everything from the house. What kind of monster does that? Dad's been supporting you, and you've had it easy. I sighed. I took everything because I paid for it. I wanted to remove all traces of me, just as you wanted, right? That's crazy, right? There's no way you could afford all that just working part-time at the pharmacy, my husband said. When I glanced at him, he started talking as if he'd resigned himself. We've been getting by on what Anna and I both make for a little while now. Then the stuff you took should be both yours. Instead of my speechless husband, I decided to speak up. Simon's company has been doing poorly, and his salary plummeted. That's why, for the past 5 years, I've been covering what's missing. But that wasn't enough, and now I'm the one paying our rent. My mother-in-law looked at my husband with surprise. I'm not just a part-timer, I'm a part-time pharmacist, and the pay is quite good. I'm making more than Simon now. At my words, my husband awkwardly looked away. My mother-in-law's eyes were frantically shifting between my husband and me. From now on, Michael, you'll be paying the rent. You're going to live here, right? After all the help your gran was given, it's time for you to take care of her. Michael looked at me with a shocked expression. When I dropped the news suddenly, rent? How much is it? He asked. It's $5,600. Good luck, since it seems my role as a mother is over. I don't have an obligation to take care of you anymore. Pull yourself together. You're going to be a father soon. Michael murmured with a shake of his head, That's impossible. It was Sarah who raised her voice upon hearing this. Wait, $5,600? Weren't we supposed to live here for free, covering rent and living expenses? I almost burst out laughing. Don't worry, Sarah. You can move to a cheaper place. Simon still makes a decent salary. Hearing this, Sarah's face relaxed a bit. Oh, since I'll be leaving you, Simon, life might still get tough with your mistress, huh? At that, Sarah finally broke down in tears. It was my husband who panicked. What? What are you talking about? Sarah replied, Oh, your mother told me about the new woman. I guess it's time to end my role as a wife, too. My husband must think there's no evidence. Indeed, it hasn't even been 10 days since I left the house. Wouldn't that hurt Mary if she heard you? Well, I'll get in touch about that later. At the mention of Mary's name, my husband jolted, realizing that I knew everything. He held his head inside. This is not the atmosphere to write a divorce paper. Well then, I'll be going now. Please talk to me further through a lawyer. Neither my husband Simon nor Michael said anything more, staying silent as I grabbed my bag and stood up. My mother-in-law stood up simultaneously, slamming her hands on the table. She yelled with a voice too strong for an elderly woman. What the hell? It's all your fault our home is in shambles. I was instantly irritated. It was you who told me to leave. It was you who said Simon had another woman. And you interfered with my relationship with Michael. Everything was you. I felt a surge of heat in my chest. I regretted not being more assertive with my relationship with Michael, not holding back because of my mother-in-law. Michael has nothing to do with this. It's time for you to step up, Simon. He's going through a hard time. You should support him as his wife. Take responsibility as a family member. What is she even talking about? If she hadn't called Michael back home, if she hadn't hinted at Simon's affair, I would still happily support Simon and this home I always believed in and supported. Simon, where are you? Michael, why are you still here? It's all her fault. My mother-in-law's lips tightened into a line, and she was trembling. I slipped past the silent mother-in-law and quickly left the room. Afterward, Simon agreed to the divorce rather easily. It seems my determination was strong, and he couldn't counter the evidence of the affair. Shortly after, it seemed like they started the process of moving out of the apartment. In the end, Michael and Sarah went back to their apartment and never lived with the mother-in-law. Simon seems to be considering remarriage, but Mary was furious over the alimony and his request for her to live with his mother. I've heard they're considering whether to place my mother-in-law in a care facility. After all the love she poured into her son and grandson, it's somewhat sad to think they're ready to abandon her now. Perhaps she's served her purpose too. If my mother-in-law had said nothing back then, and it had just been a simple trip home for childbirth, maybe we would still be living together. After the divorce, Michael sent me an apology letter. He wrote about how, as a child, he really wanted to be more spoiled, how he couldn't talk to me because his grandma disliked it, and how happy he was when I attended school events. Maybe I should have reached out more. Perhaps then, we could have built a different relationship. Even though our relationship has ended, I quietly pray for Michael's happiness in life. I've returned to work as a pharmacist and quickly rented an apartment close to my workplace. I don't feel good about keeping the furniture and appliances I took with me, so I had them all picked up and disposed of by a junk removal service. Life without my mother-in-law's harassment is peaceful and comfortable. For a while, I want to live for my own happiness, not someone else's. Checking my phone, I noticed there were 13 missed calls, all from my mother-in-law. Not again. Just as this thought crossed my mind, my phone vibrated again. Hello, I answered, and my mother-in-law shouted loudly. Brittany, where is this month's $33,000 support money? What I'm talking about, the $3,000 for this month hasn't been transferred yet. Her voice dripped with anger, never considering our situation. My patience reached its limit. She never reflected on her words or actions, even in this state. It was time for the last resort. I told my mother-in-law on the other end of the phone, your son has passed away, so I can no longer provide support. I am Brittany Wagner, a 32-year-old part-time housewife working at a major financial company. I married about 2 years ago, meeting my husband Justin through a shared hobby. His kindness and wonderful smile captivated me, and after a year of dating, we got engaged. We believed we couldn't find better partners than each other. Everything went smoothly until we faced a problem, my mother-in-law. My father-in-law had passed away years ago, and with no siblings, the only family left was my mother-in-law. Trouble started when we visited her to announce our engagement. As I greeted her, Sandra, my mother-in-law, showed her displeasure. Are you Justin's fiancé? Yes, I am. my name is Brittany Wagner. Nice to meet you. You seem rather plain. I wonder what Justin sees in you. It's curious. I couldn't tell if she was serious or joking. Shocked, I heard such words from the mother of the man I loved. Seeing my distress, Justin looked displeased with his mother. Wait, Mom, why would you say something like that all of a sudden? Why can you so casually say such awful things about the person I brought? It's different. I just want to choose the right woman for you. I brought her here because I've decided to marry her. It's not up to you to comment on my choice, Justin. You don't have to be so cold. I'm just thinking about what's best for you. The argument between mother and son unfolded, creating a tense atmosphere. As it was my first meeting with my mother-in-law, I couldn't intervene. The uncomfortable air lingered even after the argument, but ultimately, we conveyed our intention to marry. As we left, Sandra spoke to Justin in a somewhat disgruntled tone. Hey, Justin, you'll keep that promise even after we get married, right? Huh? What promise? You know about the promise of financial support. Ah, that. I will continue to do it as always. Please don't bring this up in front of Brittany. The atmosphere between my husband and his mother had been tense for a while, making the air feel heavy. On the way back in the car, I asked Justin about something that had been on my mind. Hey, Justin, about what you and your mother were discussing when we were leaving. Ah, yeah. I suppose I should discuss something with you. I heard about financial support, and since my dad passed away, I've been sending money to my mom every month. How much are you sending? $2,000 each month. What? $2,000? I raised my voice unconsciously, shocked by the amount. Justin sighed deeply and began to speak slowly. Actually, my mom is in debt. Debt? Yeah, she got into debt from gambling in the past. She's been paying it off and living on that, but her legs aren't in good shape anymore. So she spends more time at home now, and she still needs money to live, right? Well, yes, but I still think $2,000 is too much. I know, but if I even slightly reduce the amount, she keeps calling me persistently. Well, a parent is still a parent, you know? I worry about her since we can't live together. I see. Justin is incredibly caring towards his mother, but it can't be helped. Since his father passed away, his mother is the only family he has left. No matter what her character is like, she's still an important mother to Justin. At that time, all I could think was what a kind person my husband was. Then, one day, 2 months after we got married, during my lunch break, I received a call on my smartphone. It was from my mother-in-law. Hello. Yes, I answered, and she began speaking in a cheerful tone. It's been a while, Brittany. I have something to discuss. Are you free now? Yes, I'm free. What's going on? Well, I was thinking maybe you could also start sending me some financial support. I was speechless at her unexpected request, but my mother-in-law continued happily. You mentioned you work at a financial company, right? So you must have a good salary. No, that's not the case. Are you trying to lie to me because you don't want to give me money? That's not what I'm saying. Then why not? But Mother, Justin is still sending you money every month, isn't he? Yes, he is. She didn't seem to appreciate the support she was already receiving. I spoke up firmly. Please listen calmly, mother-in-law. Continuing to send as much as $2,000 a month is a really big deal, you know? And yet, you still want more. I can't understand that. Oh, is that so? You say that. But if you could just contribute the remaining $1,000, Justin wouldn't be burdened. What do you mean by that? I have Justin as a co-signer on my debt, which means if I default on my payments, the creditors will come after him. Do you understand what I'm saying? What? But wasn't the $2,000 Justin sends used for paying off the debt? Well, the thing is, it's not enough. I haven't told Justin yet, but the debt is quite substantial. It seemed from the way my mother-in-law spoke that this was a truth unknown to my husband. If we were to have children in the future, it would inevitably mean more expenses. On top of that, paying off my mother-in-law's debt wouldn't be easy. However, If her repayments fell behind by the time the debt transferred to Justin, the interest would likely have ballooned significantly. It was easy to foresee that refusing to help now would ultimately burden my husband. Realizing that, the best course might be to ensure she pays off her debt completely. I hesitantly conveyed to my mother-in-law, "I understood. I'll contribute to the support as well." "Really, Brittany? You're amazing. I knew you would say that. Combined with Justin's, it'll be $3,000 a month. This will be used to properly pay off the debt, right?" "Of course. I plan to pay off the entire amount in about a year. Please promise to pay it off without any delay." "Okay, I understand. It's a promise. So I'll be expecting the support starting from this month," my mother-in-law said, unilaterally ending the call. The stress piled onto my exhausted body, and I felt increasingly depressed. $1,000 every month. That's a significant burden, but it's necessary to prevent future troubles for us as a couple. And if my mother-in-law can't live properly, Justin wouldn't like that either. That evening, I promptly reported this to my husband. He said, "You shouldn't have to go through all this trouble." But I had already agreed with my mother-in-law. I explained it was a tough decision made to avoid future burdens on us. With a look of regret, my husband said, "I'm really sorry, but thank you," showing understanding for my decision. Time passed, and 2 years have gone by since this decision. The support, which was supposed to end in a year, is still ongoing, and we continue to transfer $3,000 to my mother-in-law every month. To complicate matters, my husband fell ill about 2 months ago and has been unable to work. He's on sick leave and receiving a small amount of sickness allowance, but it's minuscule compared to his usual salary. Last month, I used my savings to send the $3,000 to my mother-in-law. But if this continues, even our living expenses will become difficult. Incredibly, my mother-in-law hasn't once visited Justin in the hospital. I informed her a long time ago about his hospitalization, but instead of visiting, she only contacts me to ensure the continuation of the support. Frustrated by her behavior, I finally brought up the subject with my husband. "Justin, your mother only talks about money. Even knowing you're hospitalized, we need to seriously consider whether to continue the support." "Yeah, I've been thinking the same. I don't want to burden Brittany any further. She's been calling and messaging this month asking, 'Is the support coming?' Seriously, even though her own son is in the hospital, all she thinks about is money." Justin, looking somewhat gaunt, expressed his anger towards his mother. Then, with a sudden idea, he said, "Ah, I've got it," and smiled. "What is it, Justin?" "Well, I just thought of something. It's a last resort, though. Something good." "About my mother?" "Huh, what?" My husband proposed an unexpected plan. It might seem excessive, but it seemed the only way to get through to my mother-in-law in her current state. A few weeks later, Justin was discharged from the hospital, fortunately in good health. Since there was no response from my mother-in-law despite numerous attempts to contact her, we hadn't informed her of my husband's discharge date. For the past 2 weeks or so, she had been incessantly demanding financial support. There's no need to purposely send money to a mother who doesn't even worry about her son, my husband remarked while having coffee. As we relaxed, a message came to my smartphone. On closer inspection, there were 13 missed calls from my mother-in-law. Not again. As my phone vibrated again, it was another call from my mother-in-law. I deliberately turned on the speaker so that my husband could hear, and my mother-in-law immediately started shouting, "Brittany, where's this month's $3,000 support?" "What I'm talking about, the $3,000 for this month hasn't been transferred yet." "Mother, please calm down. Do you realize right now Justin is? I don't care if he's sick or whatever. You work at a good company. You must have plenty of savings. Hurry up and transfer it to me." My mother-in-law furiously shouted, eventually saying something unbelievable. "Do you get it? You married Justin and became his wife, so when Justin can't pay because he's sick, you should pay me. If you don't, I'll make you the co-signer of the debt." At that moment, something inside me snapped. She always exposed her greed, never considering our situation. My patience with her had reached its limit. Doesn't she reflect on her words or actions even in this situation? If that's the case, I have no choice but to play my last card. I firmly told my mother-in-law over the phone, "Your son has passed away, so I can no longer provide support." My mother-in-law responded with a dumbfounded, "Ha." Justin's proposed last resort was to lie to my mother-in-law that my husband had died and see her reaction. If she showed even a hint of sadness, reflected on her past behavior, and sincerely apologized, then I would consider continuing the support. But if she showed no remorse and still demanded money, I was ready to completely sever ties. I thought even a mother obsessed with money would deeply reflect upon hearing about her son's death. However, the moment she heard it, my mother-in-law started laughing loudly. "Ha ha ha. What's so funny? Because if Justin is dead, that means I'll get a share of the inheritance, right? I've been researching it, you know. I started looking into it as soon as I heard Justin got sick. You're entitled to 2/3 of Justin's estate, and the remaining 1/3 is mine." I was dumbfounded. Normally, if one hears their child is sick, they would first look for treatment or useful information. But she had been researching inheritance division. My anger reached its limit, and I was beyond appalled. My husband seemed to feel the same way, and we exchanged glances before he slowly nodded. It was a sign to continue with the plan. Once again, I spoke firmly to my mother-in-law. "Mother, did you listen to what I said? Your son Justin has passed away." "I've heard you, so what? Aren't you sad your son has died before you?" "Oh, right. I was worried I wouldn't get the monthly support anymore. But well, if I'm getting the inheritance, that's fine. How can you, for now, just make sure you give me 1/3 of the inheritance, okay? If you try to run off with it all by yourself, I'll never forgive you." The call ended abruptly, and the dial tone echoed in my ears. Casually glancing at my husband, I saw his face turn red with anger, his body shaking. "Justin, calm down. Are you okay?" As I casually asked my husband, he looked me straight in the eyes and said, "I decided I should cut ties with such a person. She will surely come here demanding money eventually, so let's wait until then." "Yeah, you're right, Justin. Are you really okay with this, cutting ties with your mother like this?" "Yeah, I am. After hearing what she said on the phone, I have no regrets. Someone who can say such things without batting an eye is not a parent." His eyes were filled with hatred, turning red. I felt the same way. A person who thinks only about money, even over her son's life, is not family. A few days later, as expected, my mother-in-law showed up at our house. I managed the situation for the time being and asked Justin to hide in the next room. Then, my mother-in-law approached me with a fierce look and pressed me aggressively. "Brittany, hand over Justin's inheritance right now." "Huh, that topic again? Don't you have anything else to say? Justin's dead, isn't he? What's the point of saying anything now? It's meaningless. You have the nerve to say that when you didn't even visit him in the hospital. Can you even call yourself his parent? You're so noisy. Just give me the inheritance right now. I'll call a lawyer if I have to." At that moment, I realized that talking to her was just a waste of time. Just then, my husband emerged from the next room. Seeing him, my mother-in-law let out a loud gasp as if she'd seen a ghost. "Justin, why, you're supposed to be dead." "Mom, long time no see. Sorry, but the story about me being dead was a lie." "A lie, you say? Why would you say such a disrespectful thing?" "To expose your true nature and confirm it for myself. I wondered how you would manage the monthly financial support if I, your son, were dead. But unfortunately, you turned out to be the worst kind of person, only thinking about money. This situation made that very clear." That's Justin, calling your own parents the worst kind of person. Quiet. I'm cutting ties with a toxic parent like you. As my husband shouted, Sandra stood there open-mouthed, stunned. She hadn't yet come to terms with the reality of being disowned by her own son. "Wait, what do you mean, Justin?" Why just said, I'm cutting ties. I can't consider someone like you my mother. Don't say that. So, what about the financial support? Why would I support you? You need to find a way to pay off your own debt. We've decided to move away. Wait, without the support, I won't be able to live. Tears in her eyes, my mother-in-law reached out to my husband. He forcefully brushed her hand away, looked at her coldly, and said, I don't care about your life. You never once apologized for all the trouble you caused us, did you? Knowing your true nature now, I feel relieved. Don't ever show your face to us again. That's cruel. Wait, Justin, are you really going to abandon your mother? Ignoring her words, my husband grabbed her arm and dragged her to the front door. Then he threw her bag and shoes outside and kicked her out of the house. She made a scene outside, but apparently unable to bear the stares of onlookers, she left after a while. Persistent calls and emails came, but we ignored them all. We blocked her number and quickly finished moving. The co-signing of the debt turned out to be something Sandra had fabricated, so the guarantee contract was void, and Justin no longer had any responsibility as a guarantor. Having lost all support from us, my mother-in-law was apparently living a miserable life. It was no surprise since she had used almost all the money we sent for gambling. The remaining debt was substantial, and she spent her days being chased by debt collectors. Working from morning till night, she couldn't gamble anymore. It's unlikely that she will pay off all her debt anytime soon. From now on, she will have to work until her body can no longer move. It's all her own doing. Meanwhile, we are living fulfilling days in our new home. Justin's condition stabilized, and he was able to return to work after recovering. And now there's a new life growing inside me. Next year, our family will grow by one, and we will start a new life. In the future, we want to spend peaceful and happy days as a family of 3. Receiving an allowance without having to tackle any household chores is a pleasant perk. However, the routine sarcasm from my mother-in-law, Julia, at 32, and working as a web designer often dampens the experience. Sharing a home with my husband, Ethan, and my mother-in-law has its challenges, especially considering our differing perspectives on work and domestic responsibilities. Originally part of a corporate environment, I transitioned into freelancing after marriage, a change welcomed by both my employer and me. The familiarity with my previous company ensures a steady stream of projects, sparing me the hassles of commuting and allowing a more concentrated effort on household tasks. Despite the satisfaction on both ends, my traditional mother-in-law doesn't share the enthusiasm. She harbors a belief in the conventional role of a wife as a homemaker, a viewpoint she expresses regularly. Despite my husband's attempts to reason with her, asserting that contemporary couples support each other, my mother-in-law remains resistant. According to her, my freelance work is merely a side job that doesn't contribute significantly to the household finances. Balancing my web design work with household chores during my free time hasn't impressed my mother-in-law. Her dissatisfaction stems from the stark contrast between my non-traditional approach and her expectations of a more conventional housewife. In her eyes, I may be perceived as the outsider who, in her mind, stole her only son. Since my husband's father passed away 5 years ago, my mother-in-law has become increasingly dependent on him. While this seems to slightly bother my husband, there's a subtle satisfaction in his acknowledgement of her reliance. Our current residence, acquired by my late father-in-law 30 years ago, now solely belongs to my mother-in-law. The mortgage was settled through life insurance, and the house layout conveniently accommodates our small family, providing me with a suitable workspace. Despite the occasional tension, our home becomes a gathering place for my mother-in-law's friends, who have been part of the neighborhood for over 3 decades. When her friends come over, the dynamics in the house take on a different tone. Taking a break from my work, I play the role of a gracious hostess to my mother-in-law's friends, offering them coffee and sweets. Yet every gathering of similarly aged women inevitably transforms into a session of complaints about their daughters-in-law. In the midst of such discussions, I can't help but chuckle as they detail their grievances. My daughter-in-law, they say, frequently returns to her parents' house over trivial matters, spending half the year away from us. According to them, she is financially irresponsible, causing even our son to be at a loss about how to handle her financial habits. Debt collectors have even paid us visits, they lament. The conversations in my workspace often take a humorous turn, with my mother-in-law's friends seemingly competing over who has the most challenging daughter-in-law. Rarely do they praise their daughters-in-law. If, by chance, one of them offers a compliment, "Your family's daughter-in-law is wonderful. She manages the household while working," my mother-in-law responds with a disgruntled expression, dismissing my work as nothing more than a side job. Amidst the laughter and gossip, my mother-in-law loudly questions the worth of my job, wondering aloud how much I actually earn. The discussion shifts to the spending habits of daughters-in-law, contrasting their personal expenses with the notion that the husband's earnings are meant for the family. The room erupts in laughter at this notion, reminiscing about the unthinkable nature of such discussions in their younger days. Unable to endure the repetitive tales of the past, I drown out the noise with headphones, focusing on my work. The modern-day daughter-in-law, myself included, often becomes the target of belittlement, making it unbearable to listen. One day, during a family dinner, my husband suggested buying a new car. My mother-in-law, quick to react, questioned why he needed his wife's consent for such decisions. Despite my husband's attempt to explain that it's a family decision, my mother-in-law insisted that he, the one with a driver's license, should choose any car he likes. Caught in the middle, my husband sought my help, and I diplomatically deferred the decision to him. The incident highlighted the ongoing dynamic where my husband always consults both me and my mother-in-law before making significant decisions, a practice my mother-in-law staunchly defended. While not inherently self-centered, my father-in-law had a penchant for making independent decisions, a trait my mother-in-law often lamented. My husband, raised by such parents, developed a belief in avoiding selfishness. On the contrary, my mother-in-law, influenced by the patriarchal behavior of my father-in-law, adhered to the notion that it was the norm. My mother-in-law's irritation towards my husband when he seeks my opinion circles back to me, with accusations that I am always too strict. I found myself at a loss for words in response to her criticism, as it's true that I tend to voice my concerns rather than making decisions independently. To my surprise, my husband, aligning with his mother, blamed me for his inclination to check with me before acting. Months into our marriage, I realized that my husband never defended me in front of his mother, even when it was just the two of us. His apologies and claims of prioritizing me seemed less convincing over time. The recent incident of choosing a new car cast a shadow on our relationship. Initially considerate, my husband ultimately failed to support me in front of his mother. Concerns about our future together began to surface, and I pondered alternatives to the current dynamics. I wished my husband would not mistake indecisiveness for kindness, and I longed for my mother-in-law to express her thoughts more directly. A month later, my husband's new car arrived, and the enthusiasm was palpable. The joyous invitation for a drive and the admiration from my mother-in-law turned sour when the cost was revealed: $660,000. Shocked by the extravagant choice, I confronted my husband about the financial implications, only to receive nonchalant responses and an offer to use a loan. My mother-in-law, quick to defend my husband, criticized my complaints about the expenditure, stating that I had given him the freedom to decide. Frustrated, I questioned the feasibility of affording such a luxury, only to be met with my mother-in-law's sharp retort: "It's not like you're paying, so you have no right to complain." Feeling unheard and dismissed, I argued that I contribute to the family income through my work. However, my mother-in-law, with an unusual harshness, questioned the legitimacy of my earnings, asserting that my little side job couldn't possibly match my husband's substantial income of over $100,000 a year. She regarded me with contempt, and just as I was about to assert that my earnings supported us, I noticed my husband had disappeared. Tolerating this treatment for too long, I reached my limit. My mother-in-law's declaration, A daughter-in-law like you should just get out. Echoed in my ears. It wasn't only her putting up with things, and discussing my salary seemed trivial now. Angry at her words and disappointed by my husband's indifference, I felt he was to blame for our dispute, given his usual indecisiveness. Fed up, I declared, "Understood then. I will leave," and headed to my workspace to pack up my computer and essentials. As I left the house, I informed my mother-in-law that I would return for the rest of my belongings later. Her angry gaze followed me, while my husband remained unseen in his room. As my mother-in-law screamed, "When you step into this house again, it will be after signing the divorce papers," I left without responding. Her abusive words, a first-time experience, bewildered me, but I chose not to engage further. Leaving my husband's house, I sought refuge at my parents' home. Surprised, my mother inquired about what had happened. Unable to specify, I lamented my lack of judgment and how my husband, who once cherished me deeply, had changed. Sharing the interactions with my husband's family with my parents brought some relief. With no children in the picture, my mother advised me to consider divorce sooner rather than later, given my financial independence. Over the weekend, with my father's help, I moved my belongings out of my husband's family home. My husband and mother-in-law remained elusive. Standing in front of my husband's room, I quietly spoke, "You took care of me for a long time. Can you sign the divorce papers?" Slipping the documents under the door, I heard his indifferent voice, "I've signed it. We're done here," as the divorce papers were returned to me. Ending my marriage without a word to my mother-in-law left me with a lingering sense of sadness. After 2 years in a house filled with few happy memories, I decided to quietly leave and head to the city office to submit the divorce papers. If a piece of paper could resolve everything, then all the better. The plan was to stay at my parents' house for the time being and continue my work there as I prepared to embark on a new life alone. As I geared up for this solo journey, my mother suggested I stay with them for a while, stating it would be less worrying than living alone. My father, too, voiced his concerns, warning that Ethan and his mother could unpredictably show up at my place. Although I initially considered such scenarios unlikely, life at my parents' home proved comforting. Thankfully, my job flexibility allowed me to work from anywhere, so I decided to extend my stay at my parents' house for a while. 2 months passed, and just as my ex-husband and mother-in-law were fading into distant memories, an unknown number flashed on my phone. Initially hesitant, I thought it might be a mistake, but after repeated calls, I answered only to find my ex-husband's frantic voice on the other end. "Why didn't you answer the phone?" he asked, sounding confused, ready to end the call. I responded that since there was no need for us to interact anymore, I would hang up. His next question caught me off guard. "Wait a minute, why isn't my smartphone working?" Without much interest, I suggested he contact the mobile phone company. However, a sudden realization struck me, and I inquired if he had been depositing money into the bank account. I used to deposit my salary, along with his, into our joint account, but it was always short due to the performance-based nature of his health product sales job. Normally, I would deposit money at the end of the month, but for the past 3 months, only his salary had been deposited. As the pieces fell into place, I left in the middle of the month, and the new car's loan payments might have kicked in. My ex-husband remained silent. "I've been managing the household with my income up to now. From now on, please manage your own living expenses," I calmly asserted over the phone. Inwardly, I felt the urge to say, "You reap what you sow," but I chose to refrain and quietly ended the call. It occurred to me that my ex-husband had never disclosed his true income to his mother. It seemed she was unaware that our post-marriage livelihood was predominantly based on my salary. Perhaps my ex-husband was too ashamed to admit that his wife earned more than he did. Despite the general knowledge that basic utilities like electricity and water aren't easily cut off, it became evident that mobile phone service could be the first to go. One holiday morning, the house intercom insisted, signaling trouble. My father sternly informed someone at the front door, We don't want to be involved with you anymore. Please leave. Sensing something serious, I rushed to the entrance with my mother. My former mother-in-law's voice sounded from the intercom, requesting a moment to talk. Tensing up, I faced her, and just as my father predicted, she had come to our home. Anger filled her face as she exclaimed upon seeing me. She blamed me for not making the monthly deposit, resulting in the electricity and water being cut off. We were all stunned by this revelation, unsure of what she meant. My ex-husband, attempting to intervene, declared, "Mom, stop it. Julia is no longer involved with us." However, his mother brushed off his hand, continuing her rage. "Ethan earns $5,000. How can this happen?" I corrected her quietly, revealing that the $5,000 was actually my income. Shocked by my declaration, she turned to my ex-husband. He admitted, almost inaudibly, that his take-home pay was about $500. My former mother-in-law stared at me in astonishment, and I clarified that my income was not just from an allowance but a regular job. She then asked about Ethan's take-home pay, and he responded, "About $500. After a moment of silence, she made an unbelievable proposition. "Julia, how about coming back? It was a joke to ask you to leave." Firmly refusing, I stated that we were already divorced, and it was no longer my concern. Despite my refusal, she persisted, suggesting that everything could be resolved if I got back with Ethan. My father, in a forceful tone, demanded they leave and warned of involving the police if they didn't. They left hurriedly, stumbling away as my father warned them not to step foot in our home again. Reflecting on their unreasonable behavior, my mother was furious, but my father seemed even more indignant. I was relieved that we had cut ties with such people. As time passed, through a friend of my ex-husband's, I learned about his subsequent situation. He had to give up his parents' house, including the land, and moved into a small apartment with his mother. The rarely used new car was sold, settling the remaining loan with the money from the house and land sale. Despite the loan being paid off, my ex-husband squandered money on gambling, and his whereabouts became unknown. My former mother-in-law was diagnosed with dementia and now resides in a nursing home. Meanwhile, I am doing well in my job and currently live alone. Recently, I started dating a man I met through work. He understands that I was previously married, and he is committed to his job, not relying on his spouse's income or indulging in extravagant purchases like my ex-husband did. While we haven't discussed marriage explicitly, I feel that we have a serious future together.